Good evening, everyone. I'm Barney Arnold, and welcome to the Carlisle Select Board meeting on Tuesday, October 11th. Nathan Brown is online with us. Hi, Nathan. Another Select Board member, Kate Reed to my right, Travis Snell to my left, and we're expecting Dave Modell shortly. I'd like to review the agenda. We start off with community input. So if there's anyone either in the room or online that would like to offer something, a comment, will raise your hand if you're online or somehow indicate that you'd like to say something, or anyone in the audience. I'll turn around and take a look.
I do.
You okay?
No, John Lavery. You asked anyone online to raise their hand or indicate if they wanted to make a comment. I do.
Well, yeah, hold on one second, John. I'm going to review the whole agenda.
Oh, okay. I thought you
All
meant
right.
now.
And then I come back.
All right.
To
No
the
problem.
community input part. Okay. Followed by some proclamations. Then we'll have the pleasure of meeting the finalist for the Assistant Town Administrator position. Then the information technology discussion will follow that, followed by the Town Administrator's report, Liaison Reports, the approval of the minutes, and then we will be joined by members of the Municipal Facilities Committee, and following that, we'll have a conversation with the police chief around the search and transition to a new police chief here in Carlisle. So without further ado, let me go back then. And so John, I understand you, I don't see you there on the Zoom, but would you like to make a comment?
Yeah, my apologies for not having a camera. So as you guys know, or some of you know, I filed a complaint with the state about the activities of the Public Safety Building Committee, and the town's response and the Public Safety Building Committee's response to that had provoked some more thoughts. And I have a question bouncing off of there, because this complaint is going to mature in a couple of weeks, and this is the last time you guys are scheduled to meet before then. I applied to be on this committee 4 different times. Twice when Alan Lewis was the chair, and twice since Barney's been the chair. There are still open slots on this committee. Barney called me, I think it was in November last year, while they were staffing up the committee, but before they were done, and informed me that the select board, we have decided not to appoint you to this committee. Now, I defend that decision from one perspective. The select board can choose anyone they want to seat on any committee. They can make the rules for the committee. That's totally their prerogative. But the part that I missed was the discussion, the rationale, the debate, my name being tossed around. In a prior meeting, when my name was up for renewal on the MFC, Luke Ascolillo stood up and said, "Oh, the chiefs object to certain members on the annual renewal list." The town had written me a note saying, "Do you want to renew on the MFC?" And I said, yes. The police chief, or the police and fire chief, object to John being on these committees. And so the list was tabled for the night, and that comment never came back up in public as far as I know. My name in reference to that complaint never came back up in public as far as I know. I reviewed the minutes of every select board meeting from April through December last year. I never saw that point being discussed. I never was called in to address that complaint, which was made an open meeting by me while I was a sitting public official. And when Barney actually made that comment to me or informed me of the committee's decision, my response was why, even though I knew why, but that was the wrong question. The question was, how did this discussion take place? How was this decision made? Who participated? What was the vote? Why wasn't I informed that I was being discussed? That's my question to the select board tonight.
Well, thank you for that input, John. As you know, we don't respond directly to community input, but
You can do.
I do want to make sure we follow up on that. So
The
one way or the
follow-up will
other,
be my
we'll be in
response
touch.
to the state AG. And what's going to happen is that if you don't respond or even talk about it tonight, I'm just going to assume what I think happened is that you guys talked about this behind the scenes. A lot of one-on-one phone calls or conversations, you made the decision behind the scenes, and then they put you forward to decide it. That's what I think happened.
Well, as I say, John, I'm sorry that's how you feel. And,
No, that's what I think, Barney.
If you'd
The feelings
alerted
aren't a
us,
part of it.
John, if you had, reached out to any member of the select board before tonight and asked for time on the agenda, we could definitely be addressing this.
Barney.
But
I actually did. I'd asked you months and months ago. I said, Barney, I'm going to protest the way you did this. And you told me the way to do that was in open comments at the beginning of the meeting. That's why I just did what I did.
Okay, well, John, I'm not going to engage any further tonight, but I would be very happy to follow up with you after the select board meeting.
No, I don't want to have a one-on-one conversation, Barney. That's the whole point.
Okay.
There's too many one-on-one conversations. These things need to be made public.
John, we do our very best to make sure that we are as transparent and informative as we can be. I'm not going to discuss this any further tonight. I appreciate your comments, and I'm going to move on and see if there's anybody else that would like to offer a comment now. Is there anyone in the room? Yeah, Vanessa? And why don't you, if you want to sit right here at the mic, Vanessa, then we'll be able to hear. Any confusion? Yeah.
So on October 3rd, sure, yep, Vanessa Maroney, Bedford Road. So on October 3rd, I sent a request I've never made before to the Carlisle Police for an incident report of the dog attack at 480 South Street on September 23rd. And just today, I received a response from that request. Again, I've never submitted a request like that before, but I was told that's what you can do. And basically, there's no information will be given about this. But so I want to register my significant concerns about this was the dangerous dog where there was a hearing last October. And I personally made a mistake last year in that for the second part of the hearing, I did not come in person and read a letter because I thought it kind of sounded like a no-brainer. I thought it really, the facts were so clear that of course the right decision was going to be made to remove this dog from the town. And we all know how that turned out. And it didn't happen. And I published, my husband and I published a letter in the Mosquito saying that we really felt let down. And I'm angry about that. We are angry about that. And so for the record, I'm going to read the letter that I sent on October 6th, almost exactly a year ago, to Barney, David, Luke, Kate, and Nathan. I said, I'm writing to voice my strong feelings pertaining to the dangerous dog hearing currently underway. When I first read about the attack at Great Brook Farm, I was very upset by several things. The severity of the attack, the fact that the dog owner gave the victim false information, and the horrible image of what if the victim had been a child or someone else less able to physically defend themselves. Based on reading the Mosquito article from September 29th, this was 2021, the dog was already under quarantine for 3 other incidents since May 11, 2021. This means that the owner knowingly took this dog, who was supposed to be under quarantine, off leash to a public park where it then viciously attacked an adult male. The owners may have been apologetic at the hearing on September 28th, and they may have stated that they, quote, have instituted a number of safety precautions, but what they have shown is complete disregard for the safety and care of others by taking this dog unleashed out in public and providing false information to the victim. They have proven themselves not only to be irresponsible dog owners, but also to be untrustworthy. Both my children, who are each just over 100 pounds, have been known to take their bikes on the trails at Great Brook Farm with friends. And do you think that they would have been able to fend off this dog like an adult male did? What kind of injuries do you think they would have sustained? Do you think they would have survived? And these are serious questions you need to consider. And I write this letter as someone who, as a middle school student, was attacked by 2 dogs while riding my bike. It was pretty traumatic, and both dogs were euthanized. This happened in Rehoboth, Massachusetts, my hometown. And just 2 years ago, a 14-year-old boy from Rehoboth was killed when he was attacked by a dog. It does happen, and it is tragic. I know each of you to be caring parents and grandparents, and I'm asking you to take care of all of our kids by voting to remove this dog from Carlisle. The owners have young children at home, and please protect them and their young friends as well. If this dog is allowed to stay in Carlisle, and God forbid it attacks someone else, it will have been completely avoidable. And I worry that each of you and the town will be liable. It is your responsibility to make sure this dog is removed from the town as soon as possible. Respectfully, Vanessa. So here we are. The dog has attacked someone else, was taken to the hospital by ambulance. And I'm looking for answers, and I'm looking for, my children now know about this, and they are like really disturbed at the process. I don't think I have anything more to say, but I am expecting some sort of response either in the Mosquito or something. There needs to be communication with people about what the plan is. I don't care if it happened on private property. You need to think about that kid down the road who flies a drone and it goes into their neighbor's yard and they just hop the fence to go get it. This town is reeling from loss that we've been struggling to comprehend. And I cannot imagine further loss from a preventable situation. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Vanessa. I know it's a very difficult situation. I can say that we are looking into the situation. I can't say a whole lot more, but it is on our it's gotten our attention, and we are in conversation with town council. Let's go on. Is there anyone else in the room that wanted to make a comment, or anybody else on the Zoom call? All right. Well, on to some happier news. Carrie, are you here representing the playground committee?
I'm here, yes.
Lovely. And I don't know if is anyone on the Zoom call from the playground committee, the Carlisle Castle Playground. Oh, yes, Brian. Hi there. Well, we as the select board wanted to acknowledge the amazing work of and there's, is that Scott? Yeah, hi,
Yep.
Scott.
Hey, Barney.
Jen.
And Jen's here as well.
Oh, good. Hi, it's a little hard to see who's on the screen. Well, anyway, I want to read to you the certificate of appreciation that we have prepared, one for each of you, for all 7 members of the committee. And it reads, the Carlisle Select Board wishes to recognize the extraordinary efforts of the Castle Playground Committee. Committee Chair Brian Watterson and members Scott Jameson, Carrie Patel, Deepa Chungi, Dennett Seidel, Linda Veneria, and Jen Kaczynski led a remarkable community effort to build a new playground on the footprint of the first Carlisle Castle. The committee coordinated all aspects of this project, including the recruitment and feeding of hundreds of volunteers. This new play space, nestled among the trees near the Carlisle School, will provide many happy hours of fun and exercise for decades to come for our residents as well as those visiting Carlisle. The Select Board salutes you. Thank you all very much. We're signing one for each of you tonight, and we haven't quite finished signing, Carrie, or I would give you yours, but you want to take a picture? Excellent.
Sounds like a photo op.
Oh, you want to see over here? How's that? That better? Great. So, I don't know if any of you have recovered enough to want to say anything, but it is, having taken my grandchildren there, not once, not twice, but 3 times already at their insistence.
Excellent.
I know what an accomplishment it is that will be appreciated and enjoyed for many, many years to come.
No, thank you so much for the recognition. Apologies not to be there in person, but there was also a library trustee meeting, so we're tag teaming tonight. But I did just also want to say we want to thank the 1,100 plus members of the community who did come out to help build, because it would not have been possible without all of that support. But thank you very much.
Thank you all. Yes. Okay, and then the other happy news is we wanted to also celebrate the 50th anniversary of the Carlisle Mosquito, which has been, an independent nonprofit newspaper for our town for 50 years and is one of the few remaining independent weekly newspapers in our area. Let me just read the proclamation. It says, whereas in September 1972, the Carlisle Mosquito newspaper was founded with a desire to keep residents informed and to protect the quality of life in the community. Whereas the Mosquito has remained an independent weekly paper supported by the community and local advertisers that provides a high standard of journalism. And whereas the Mosquito focuses on publishing coverage of town boards, school and recreation commission meetings and actions. And whereas the Mosquito also has comprehensive coverage of youth sports news, emphasizing participation in addition to scores and results. And whereas the Mosquito has enriched the cultural life of the community through its attention on the local art scene. And whereas the longevity of the Mosquito is due to the tireless dedication of the newspaper staff to report on local events and issues important to the residents. Now, therefore, the Select Board congratulates the Carlisle Mosquito newspaper on its 50th year and wishes continued success in the future. In witness whereof, we've given our hand and seal on this 11th day of October, 2022. And we'll, once all the signers have done their work, we will present this to the Mosquito. Cynthia, I see you're on the call, so thank you very much. And I see Beth here, Beth Clark, who does a lot of the photography for the Mosquito, and to everyone who works so hard at the Mosquito, all the staff there. Thank you very much on behalf of the whole community.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Yes.
Sorry, it's not on the turn, but
Yes.
moved a little quickly for me.
Sure.
I just wanted in public to,
Yeah, come on up to the mic and just introduce yourself. Yeah.
Carrie Patel, Toffet. The DPW and the fire department, the amount of help that they gave us on the playground absolutely would not have been done. Gary and all the other guys, I just can't even begin to express how much work they did beforehand, after cleaning up the plaza. So I just wanted to put that out
Good.
there as well.
Good. Yeah. Thank you, Carrie.
Yep.
Seconded. Yeah, it's all signed now, right? Yeah. Oh, Nathan hasn't signed it. No, he hasn't. There's a middle one that's blank because he's on Zoom.
Yes, we have to do that. You must have put it in.
I know. You want David twice? Okay. That's okay.
Do it again.
Um, all right. Well, thank you, Carrie, for that important addition. All right. Well, now it's my pleasure to turn this part of the meeting over to Ryan to introduce Aubrey and welcome to Carlisle. Yeah, come right on up and you can, yeah.
So for members of the board, I know you've received some background information, but this is Aubrey Thomas. And I just want to talk about the process of selecting Aubrey before we get into her qualifications and credentials. So the board authorized this position along with many conversations amongst town boards and officials to add an assistant town administrator. We put together a screening committee that includes someone from public safety, resident services, one finance team member, but we picked Anish because she also had the HR experience. So that's Chief Fisher, Joan from the Council on Aging, Anish from HR and Treasury. The board appointed Kate to represent the board, and then myself was the screening committee. We were very pleased to receive 18 applicants of varying backgrounds, non-traditional candidates and traditional candidates, so just a good range. We ended up bringing in 4 candidates for first interviews with the screening committee, and then the selection was narrowed down to 2. And then we forced Aubrey to go through a arduous interview with myself to do a writing sample, talk about background. We talked to some of the folks that she works with, and also answered several questions that were the priorities of the committee. And very pleased to say that Aubrey was exceptional in all the interviewing processes and is very qualified and a good fit for the town. But here are her qualifications. So I'm not just saying that. She has 2 master's degrees, well-versed in communications, and then 1 in public administration. She also has served most recently as the assistant town administrator in Shirley, Massachusetts, where she's from, where she lives now. I shouldn't say that's where you're from. In Shirley, Massachusetts, where she's done everything to include standing in for the town administrator when necessary. Some of the specific experience that the committee and I were pleased to discuss. I just want to read here that she managed the senior tax work-off program, and not just that program, because I know she's capable of that, but worked with the Board of Assessors, departments, and residents to make sure that everybody who was eligible qualified, and then fix some of the policies to make sure that was good. Also, solid waste and recycling billing system, the implementing of the system, the financial measures, coordinating with the department, the DPW, and then also putting policies in place. So that's the type of person that we're looking for this position for sure. She has HR experience, and I believe was doing all HR essentially for Shirley, except for, I'm assuming discipline and evaluation, that type of thing. And maybe he was even doing that, and is heavily involved in coordinating with town departments and committees, comes from a committee herself and a volunteer background. So she understands that importantly. She's working towards her MCPPO certification if you haven't completed it already, and has a tremendous experience in finance. So a well-rounded all-around candidate, I think, that matches everything that the board was looking for. And we're looking for you to introduce yourselves and her the same, to see if the select board agrees with the screening committee that she's a good fit.
Great. Do you want to, I don't know, share a little bit about why you're interested in Women in Carlisle and oh, sorry.
Sure, absolutely.
Welcome,
So-
Aubrey.
Thank
Would
you.
you like to share a little bit about yourself?
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you so much. I'm very excited to join Carlisle. I've been with Shirley for 2 years, and it's been an amazing experience. But I am looking forward to expanding that knowledge, learning, all the new facets with Carlisle, the projects I will be able to focus on here. I'm really looking forward to working with the boards and committees and staff members and residents. I really enjoy that. I enjoy problem solving, implementing policies and helping with that. And I know that's a big priority with this position. So I think it's a great opportunity to grow in this career, and really take on this new role for Carlisle and really, help as much as possible.
Yeah, great. Other comments or questions from, maybe, shall we introduce ourselves? We'll start back here.
Hi, sorry, I'm in the corner here. Penalty box.
COVID corner.
I don't have it, but my family member has, so, well, welcome. It's great. I'm David Modell, Select Board, but we've long hypothesized about this position, and we're really very excited to have it come to fruition. So we got a lot of work for you. How soon are you starting?
I'll be starting the November 8th, is right?
Assuming the formality of appointment,
Yeah.
first week in November.
Yeah.
Okay, so
And one thing that our staff member said when they met her was very excited to have someone who can start doing work on day one, which was a key decision factor for Aubrey.
Yeah. Travis?
I'm Travis Snell, and Aubrey and I met on the way in.
Yes.
So it was helpful. Very excited to meet.
Funds that they maintain on their books until they
Thank you
donate
for
it.
being here.
So they met too. Once it's donated, we typically will
I'm
spend
the
it for the
newest
purpose
member of
they
the board, by
designate.
the way.
And I'm Barney Arnold, the chair of the board. And yeah, I'm very excited to have you here and looking forward to putting the motion on or having someone make the motion. And once Kate and Nathan have had a chance to say hello.
Go ahead and say it, because
Okay, you were on the screening committee. Okay. Yeah, Nathan, would you like to say hi?
Hello. Hi, I'm Nathan Brown. It's very impressive reading your resume and your cover letter. And I've been on the board for I think 9 years now, and we've needed this position for a long time.
Nice to meet you virtually.
And I'm thrilled to have you sitting at the table and yeah, I guess I'm too far away from it. Sorry. I'm very happy to welcome you to the table. And as everybody has said, we've needed this position to be fill the functions need to be done. And it is wonderful that to have such a great candidate that, as Ryan said, can just come in on day one and get to work. So we're all besides ourselves.
So who would like to make the motion that's in our packet?
I'd be happy to
I'll make it.
Oh, okay. Go ahead, Nathan.
I move that the select board vote to appoint Aubrey Thomas to serve as the assistant town administrator, subject to a professional background check and successful negotiations.
Second.
Any discussion? All right, hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote, please. Arnold, I.
Brown eye.
Modell, I.
Reed, I. Snell, I.
It's unanimous.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks. Congratulations.
Yeah.
Go, yes. Time to go. Think on meeting.
Yes, so it's not awkward. I told Aubrey she should, or she could stay if she wanted to, but she has other obligations tonight. We're
sure.
good to come, so
Yeah,
free. And I'll be in contact with you no later than Wednesday morning.
Great, thank you so much.
You
okay.
can't get away without the mosquito photographing you though.
Excellent. So let's move on. And Nathan, I'm assuming this is you and Ryan here for the Information Technology Committee discussion. So I will turn it over to the two of you.
Go ahead, Ryan.
All right, you want me to go first?
Yeah.
Okay, so the board asked Nathan and I to meet with Bob, our representative from Drive Tech, the president of Drive Tech. And we also invited Scott Hefner, the school's IT manager, network manager, to join the conversation and talk about the IT committee. So it was a very simple conversation focusing specifically on getting me up to speed on the history of the committee, what the structure recommendation might be to this board, and then didn't really get into goals and objectives yet because we feel like the structure and getting the committee going is the most important aspects. But of course, there are these lingering items from the select board and the master plan that we know need to be addressed. So the committee recommended a full subcommittee status of the subcommittee of the select board, a 7-member committee to include 3 Carlisle staff members, 1 select board member, and 3 members at large to include the IT provider. So this would be a full subcommittee meeting under the provisions of the open meeting law. And then the recommended charge I pulled from another community that I felt had similar goals. So this is just a draft to work from so that we're not starting from scratch. But this would be a 7-member committee, which would develop a strategic plan that they review annually, assist the board and department with recommendations on hardware, software, and equipment needs, provide and update the town's budget process to include long-term planning tools and capital improvement plans with technology, and then serve as liaison between the select board and the town's selected IT provider. Some initial goals and considerations that were discussed were to review the Clifton Larson audit and provide an update on the following findings. So IT security, IT policies, staff training, hardware and software upgrades, the town phone system upgrade, a base configuration for each remote, for each conference room and how they would do this, right? Work remotely. And then more robust implementation of Office 365. I think I switched those numbers, 365, not 356. So what the committee is doing is giving these recommendations to you to see if they match your need. And then, of course, you would give us instructions on how to fill this committee and move forward. And Nathan can probably provide a lot more history and IT knowledge for sure.
Yeah, and just one clarification that I just noticed in this, the Clifton Larson audit didn't have findings on all of these things. So it's a review of the Clifton Larson audit, and provide an update on other plans that we had. So Clifton Larson didn't have anything to say about a base configuration for conference rooms and things like that. Just want everybody to be clear.
Yeah. Okay.
Understood. Thank you.
And tell us a little bit about the makeup of the committee. The three members at large, including the IT provider. So would they be voting members? In your mind? I'm just asking. I don't have an opinion one way or the other.
I was thinking that all 7 members would be voting members.
Okay. And who are you thinking might
and
be
I think
the
that
other?
I think that we had kind of kicked around if it, that the chair would kind of be stationary at Ryan. And right now, 2 members who have served previously, David McKay and Bill Wisso, are interested in continuing to serve.
So they would be the other 2 members at large.
Right. And then Bob. And I'm
Right.
happy to serve, but there's room for one select board member. Yeah.
Uh-huh. Okay.
Which staff? Which staff?
Can't hear you. Sorry.
David's asking which staff.
Mike's on. Which staff members were you considering? Or how do you not?
Looking through, still thinking about who might serve. I did approach Brian, our chief assessor, who has a tremendous amount of IT knowledge at the user end and additionally in the hardware end. So I think he would be a good fit. Then we would add another member, probably from the finance side, to discuss how all this fits into the bigger picture. And again, how to implement our biggest software, which is Munis.
I have 2 sort of procedural questions, or a select board subcommittee. What actually is that?
Yeah.
Is that a thing?
If you deem it to be so, yes. A subcommittee would be the way that this is traditionally done, or is done in other towns. I shouldn't say traditionally. The way this is done is this committee is appointed by you to provide recommendations back to you about information technology, which is what I believe was the makeup that you
So are all committees that we appoint actually subcommittees of the select board?
Depending on how you frame it, yes.
Okay. And there's no problem with a mix of daytime and nighttime government being on a committee, right? I don't think. Okay.
As long as we clearly post and communicate the
Right.
meeting and make it open.
Okay. And so is it called the subcommittee or the committee? The IT?
I think I'd prefer to call it a committee because we don't have, this
This
don't
would be a new.
new category,
Just
which I don't.
do it like a regular old committee with a charter and blah, blah, blah.
Right? Is
Yeah.
that kind of what we're thinking here with the charge here? Nathan, are you thinking this would be like any other committee?
I think that's what we were talking about with this. This is a regular committee. I'm not sure about the terminology of subcommittee or non-subcommittee. But this is a full-fledged, committee doing agendas and meeting.
Okay.
So maybe if we just call it the IT committee.
Right.
This is a language. This is
Yeah.
a language issue with me. So however, Carlisle
Yeah.
committee is fine.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
last, just one other question with, Bob, what's his name?
Bob
Drive
Falco.
tech guy. So I'm okay with him being a voting member, but he would naturally recuse himself from votes about RFP.
His own services.
And selecting the committee may decide to bid out services, probably will, and his company would be one of the bidders, but hopefully not the only one. And is there any laws or anything we don't know about where, somebody who has a vested economic interest in the outcome is also on the selection? Or you just recuse him during that? I don't know.
Or you could have him serve as a non-voting member advising the board as well. It's
That
another
might be
structure.
better. In my opinion, that might be better.
I would be more comfortable with that. I'm uncomfortable with an outside vendor, a vendor serving, serving on a committee for the town. I don't
Would
mind it
that instead
Serving
just-
on a committee or being a voting member on that committee?
being a voting, well, first, certainly being a voting member to start with. We can talk about the other thing after that, but certainly would not be happy. I mean, for instance, on, our building committees, we don't, our architects and engineers are never voting members of the committee. They are advisory to the committee.
Yeah, I
And
think this is,
similarly-
so I'm fine with it not being a voting position, but this is a little different than, like individual projects within what a committee is working on. This is our go-to person who is leading a lot of the IT within the town. And so pulling him in to be a part of those discussions as to, where we're going and what we're doing and getting his viewpoint on it, given the detailed knowledge he has of the technology in the town, I think is important. But I'm fine with it not being a voting member, but it would seem to me, Ryan, like we would probably need to then make it an 8-person committee just so that we have an uneven number of voting members.
Yes,
Uh-oh.
make
So
the
make
one
him a
that's,
non-voting
and
member
then add
and then
a
add an
bunch.
additional.
Maybe somebody from the finance committee
Yeah. That would be,
or MFC or some other related committee.
Or I don't know if it makes sense. I
Mhm.
guess there's only one person from the school that can, that does their IT stuff, right?
So Scott is going to be another attendee who advises, but he's not going to be a voting member until we flush it out a little bit more what the long-term plan is and what the delineation between town and school is. We had that conversation. So
Okay.
Scott
Okay.
wants to be a part of it.
but he doesn't want to be.
Jim wants him
voting.
to be a part of it, but we want to ease him into any of the long-term planning
Okay.
or that
Okay.
position, not necessarily him.
I mean, and I would have, personally, because he's a staff of the town, I would have no objection to him being a voting member, as well as advisory, but that's fine, leaving him as advisory. So I'm sure we can find one other member at large in town that knows something about IT. There's Bob Supnick, who takes and refurbishes everybody's old stuff and gives, there's a lot of people in town that know something.
I can reach out to Bob.
Yeah. Now, I'm just, in the past, when we have created a new committee, we have, often posted something in Mosquito asking if anyone is interested in serving, or sent a letter or something to make it sort of open to the public. What do you think about that?
I think that's fine if that was for me.
Yes.
I think that's important, frankly. I
Yeah.
mean, if we're going to establish committees, I'm still trying to, I'm the newest of the board here, so I'm starting to, I don't have the history of the working group and why we are where we are. But it did occur to me, is this just to be able to review our technology and then advise on what we want to invest in ultimately? Is that kind of succinctly what this committee's charge will ultimately be? Or is it something else? Because in just kind of reviewing this from the outside, not having the background, it almost seems like this could be done within just the daytime management rather than in the evening, meaning the volunteers and the public could, weigh in just as to approve, disapprove, or have some oversight. But this seems like a much more robust committee to have, and it's unclear to me, and I know it says here exactly what your goals are, but if it would be easier or not to have, less community input because it would just be more efficient. But I'm not saying that's necessarily the case. I'm just asking kind of the question on how we got to where we got to on this. So can you do that succinctly? Just give me a quick, Nathan, background on why this is necessary.
Yeah. So it goes back, I think, to 2014 or 2015 when I may be a little bit off on my timing, when this committee was first, or the working group was first pulled together. And so what the working group did then was we evaluated the systems in the town. We did surveys and we created it was either a 3 or a 5 year plan that we presented to town meeting for the funding. And then that funding was approved and then, subsequently in subsequent years, additional funding has been approved. I think, to give you the long, boring or a short, boring answer is, I think, one of the things that had happened was the town had voted to spend not insignificant amount of money on fiber for public safety. And I think the select board at the time thought, well, if we're spending this money on this, we should really take a look at IT overall and figure out how we can leverage that more, and also what other things should we be doing. And so that's why the committee was put together. So far the committee has, done things like, worked with a vendor to implement that fiber in the town. And then a few years ago, under the, RJ Matthews, I think, was a part of it. The network was lit up between all of the buildings in town. So it's kind of a doing group. I think some of the heavy things that we're going to need to be doing that are in response to the audit are writing a number of policies that are going to have to be reviewed by the select board. So far, we've only done the password change policy. There's another number of other ones we need to have to do for our Clifton Larson audit. And then we do have the phone, a large need to replace our phone system. So I think that the idea behind this was we didn't have the expertise in town hall. We needed to put more resources at this. We have a lot of people who know technology in town. So the select board asked Tim to put together a group of people to carry IT forward.
Great. That's really helpful. And I think not having the resources at town hall being, a key component of this, but
Yeah.
I encourage you to look at it that the committees moving forward, because the committees have histories and they exist as they are now and don't necessarily want to change everything. But when you establish a committee to do this, you need to see options, you need to see a plan, a strategic plan, you need to see what the budget's going to be. Have that committee bring that back to you to make a decision. So add this to the 5-year planning, add this to the strategic planning, and then go to town meeting for approval. So this committee doesn't have to get a pot of money to execute RFPs. It can just say, this is what you should do. Include that in your planning. Then the board can decide who does that, whether that's me or whoever in town needs to execute that. But the staff, to both points, And the select board doesn't have the time and the bandwidth to come up with a 5. So this group and committee does that. Brings it back to you and says, here's all the research. Now what do you want to do? And then you do it.
Forgive me, Nathan, if I'm oversimplifying this also, but my understanding is that we have this fiber optic system and it's as if we've electrified everything, but we haven't plugged any lamps in or toasters or anything else. And so we just got all this wire hanging out there and it's not being used.
Yeah, well, I think, you know, to some buildings, that's fairly accurate. You know, like, yeah, I don't think that the library is heavily utilizing it. We did have a serious water problem at town hall. You know, like one of our network components was actually completely submerged in water. So we did move the server room and all the servers in that room to the school and into the old server room that was left vacant when we did the school building project. And public safety is over this fiber, but you are correct. Not all the buildings are fully leveraging it.
So this would also, I'm hoping would help facilitate that.
Any other discussion? I'm wondering then, are you looking for, do you want to come back with a charge, a formal charge, or are you looking for a motion?
What's wrong with this?
Keep doing that. Sorry. Are you, are you looking for a motion tonight to establish this committee, or what, or is there anything you need from us tonight, or would like from us tonight?
I would like the committee structure to be decided and the charge to be decided so we can get to work.
Yeah, that would be nice.
I would agree that.
Okay, so maybe with
I
the one
move-
change
I'll make
then
a
in
move.
the 7-member committee.
I move that the the select board authorizes the formation of IT committee to be 7-member committee with a 1 non-voting, or you want to do an 8-member? It's 7 voting member and 1 non-voting members, consisting of 3 Carlisle staff, including the TA as chair, 1 select board member, and 3 members at large, and 1 IT provider, being the non-voting member, with the recommended charge as presented tonight in the memo dated October 3rd, 2022.
Is it October what?
October, the memo is dated October 3rd.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Is there a second?
Second.
Just a quick question, Ryan, did we want to have Scott on the committee, but a non-member?
Yeah, I think non-formally he can participate. And
Okay.
then when we're ready, we'll add him.
We'll change the
Okay.
thing.
So he's not on, or he's not?
He-
Well,
He'll be attending regularly.
I mean, yeah, you're gonna, to Barney's point, I think. You have an idea who you want, but you're gonna put a request out, have to get members in. We'll have to vote the members then, like we always do.
Yeah.
Okay.
But-
So,
With 7 members, they only need 4 of them. And so 3 Carlisle staff members and 1 select board member is already a quorum right there.
Mm.
And so, and I would imagine that those staff members would be presented to us by
next meeting, right?
at our next meeting.
Yeah.
Can they start
And
provisionally?
or he could present them to us tonight if we, well, you probably want to talk to them to see if they want to be on
In the same way, I have some ideas, but I'd like to put it out to staff
it.
to see who wants to
Right,
Right,
participate.
So you'll come back at the next meeting with the actual people that we should
a
appoint.
slate of
Yeah.
appointees.
Okay.
Just for clarification, you said 8 members, I think, in your motion. Is it 7
It's-
within 1 plus 1 non-voting?
It's,
Eight.
yes,
7 voting, 1 non-voting.
7 voting and 1 non-voting member.
Okay.
So that makes a total of 8 members, but that for the quorum, they only need
4 of 7.
4
Yeah.
voting, 4 voting members.
4
Right.
voting.
And who is going to take the lead in the newspaper or to at least publish this? Is that the town? Or is someone on the committee? I don't know.
We'll do that. So
Okay.
Jen will do that through my
Okay,
office.
great.
We have
Okay.
a Motion.
Hearing no more discussion, we have a motion that's been seconded. A roll call vote. Arnold, I.
Brown eye.
Model I.
Reed, I.
Snell, aye.
Excellent. It's unanimous and
I'd like to make a second motion that we nominate Nathan as the select board representative to the IT committee.
I
Second.
second.
Okay, go ahead.
do you accept your nomination, Nathan?
I do.
Excellent. Any discussion? I think Nathan is fully qualified.
I think so.
And we're very, very glad he's accepted this nomination. So roll call vote, please. Arnold, I.
Brown eye.
Model I.
Reed, I.
Snell, aye.
And I'd like to make a third motion that we nominate Ryan McLean to serve on the IT committee.
I don't,
Do we
I
have
don't
to
know
do
if
that or
we need to
don't?
do that because it says that the town administrator is the chair of the committee.
I accept.
All right, so you guys get to work. Come back with a slate. And then the last thing is, I request that when you come back next time, also think about, because I'm always thinking about calendar stuff, when a reasonable time for a check-in. You know, you won't have really met yet and figured it all out, but you have a good enough sense of what you want to get done when. Are there things, for example, are there going to be things for which you will want money at town meeting? You know, that's the kind of stuff, like you might want to come back. It's early enough, right? October. So you know, if you come back around Christmas time or right in the beginning of January, there's enough time to fold that into a budget discussion.
Yeah, I would say that there are certain things like equipping the conference rooms with hybrid meeting setups would be something that the ARPA money
Yeah.
would be very appropriate to use. And then, you know, later on, you'd have to put it in the operating budget for replacement, you know, on a replacement schedule. But
Right.
for the initial thing, I think some of the ARPA money should be looked at.
Well, ARPA's certainly good, but just more broadly, you know, we have a window of opportunity to budget into the fiscal 20,
Yeah.
what year, 24 year? What are we budgeting? 24?
Yes, 23,
So
24.
let's get that, because otherwise you have to wait another 6 to 12 months. So, good.
Right.
Thank you, guys.
yeah,
Good work.
okay. Let's move on then to the town administrator's report.
All right, thank you, Barney. So transition work, I'm gonna start winding this down a little bit as hopefully I'm less transitioning and more doing. But still meeting, trying to meet with every staff member, which is very important, but also time consuming. Some of the things that came out of that was staff wanting to reinitiate monthly get-togethers. I know it sounds simple, but 15 to 30-minute lunches where people are recognize birthdays, that type of thing. So a few of the staff members are going to take the lead on that. We're going to start that up, invite people. We already have pizza laid on for October, so everyone's pumped. And then I met with our van drivers, and they have a meeting where all the van drivers talk about issues. They were doing training about providing mental health services to the people, and they don't provide the services. They're not providers, but they identify issues and connect people with services like the COAHS does. And just pretty unique to have the robustness behind the drivers that Carlisle has. The COA vans across the state. I think Carlisle has a uniquely qualified group. So just something you should know. But it was good to meet with them. Continuing to meet with staff, and we'll be providing trying to work together to get our assistant level employees all meeting on a monthly basis to discuss their issues so that they can inform the HR process and the board. So just identifying more areas of connection. In terms of human resources, the town planner position, which I know is on par with the ATA in terms of when can we make this happen. So on the 27th, the planning board will be interviewing a final candidate, 27th of October. Very excited to put that candidate forth to the planning board. So that'll be on the agenda. The name will be released when it is on the agenda. So that is good news to move that town planner process forward. course, still have to discuss the position fit and other things, so it's not final, but we are moving that process along. You met our new ATA today. We were very excited about that hire, and I know the staff is as well. The assistant assessor position is continuing to be vetted and screened. It is a very important and difficult position to staff, just based off of what's available for people who want to do the position, pay levels and responsibility levels. Everything has to be flushed out and perfect. So there's also a lot of knowledge assessing, and the assistant assessor can really supplement our office and have us lean less heavily on third-party vendors. So we want to make sure we get this hire right. It's a long way of saying the Board of Assessors is still working through that hire, but we expect to have something in November, or they expect to have something in November. And then Chief of Police, we're going to talk about extensively tonight, so I won't go into that in this. Right now, I'm focusing on pivoting away from hiring and working on HR operations, and that's all to prep the field for Aubrey to come in and hit the ground running with that work. So that is using all the conversations I've had and understanding, comparing policies, and getting that ready for Aubrey to do the work on and to implement with Anish and other HR staff. Also, Kelly and I, our town accountant, have been working on finalizing some wage analysis from the HRS study that was done by the board and looking at position classifications. And then I'm working on a memorandum that'll be complete in the next week or two on really identifying on legal standing and other precedent for how people are hired, what the decisions are, and the background for all of the classification information that I'll be presenting to the board and making publicly available. So this is as simple as who hires the historical commission assistant.
Yeah.
Important to know that'll be in a memo form to reference, hopefully for all time, because that is difficult. So that'll feed into organizational charts and then analysis of hours and need, compare that to the master plan, and then the implementation of wage studies, so we can see the bigger picture developing and how those costs feed into long-term financial planning. Finance team met this week, transitioning to finance, working on 3 significant projects. So that's documenting the budget process and supplementing the finance committee's work, recommending new town finance policies. We completed one to send to the finance committee, which is our Opeb decision-making, which is an important part of the budget process. And then building these financial models. So we have a bunch of us working on these models, trying to put them together into one usable item. These all exist around town, sometimes on people's computers, like well-versed volunteers, and sometimes in town offices and certain things. So I'm just trying to push them all together so that we have one good solid product that everybody uses rather than everybody using their own, which is an issue that you all know. I've included a draft of the budget calendar. So this is matching and modeling the work that David does with trying to put things on paper when things are coming. So we nested that with the select board dates. We're nesting with the finance committee and trying to understand how this calendar will look moving forward. And then, of course, looking at it for efficiencies and other corrections. So this will also provide a very transparent calendar for the public to come and view the budget process so they can provide early input. That avoids and I'm not saying this happens here, but it happens in every town. I didn't know about this until the last minute and I don't feel informed. We want to make sure that that's the opposite, that it's as transparent as possible. The committee talked, and in our all chairs meeting, we talked about annual town meeting being held on Monday, May 8th. I encourage the board to formalize that at some point through the motion. And then the last thing in finance, did talk about this Opeb liability policy. We had finance committee representation there. It's going to go to them and then it'll come to you. So this Opeb policy would talk about what is a long-term funding strategy for our benefits other than pension, which is what Opeb stands for. So how much are we putting into our liability account each year? And that has major implications on what you spend on capital and what you spend and maintain for town reserves. It's an important policy. It's a piece of the budget process, which is why we focused on it first. We had a great
Just before you went forward, I just want to ask a question about the May 8th date for the, I was going to say the Springtown meeting. Is that okay with the school? Are there any other things going, because we have to reserve the auditorium, and sometimes we go and they say, oh, well, we're having a play or they're going to have a concert, and, it doesn't work. So I
should have anticipated. So Barney did reach out to the moderator to make sure that she made sure that we did that. And then we met with the school chairs, and the reason why it wasn't the first week in May, which is the original date, is because Concord is having their meeting then. So we
Okay,
moved it.
okay, so you've already done all that work. Great.
And Peggy Wang is fine with it too.
Did we check actually with Jim O'Shea and those guys?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Great. All right.
So
do
we
you want
should,
to,
at some point
I'm-
tonight, but I don't know, when you get to action items, maybe
Oh.
we'll add that in as an
Okay.
action item when you're done. Yeah.
All right, sorry, there's a lot going on, so I'm just gonna keep plowing through this. So our resident services team, this is one of the better meetings of the month. So we talked about informing everybody about how residents can access help for heat. Found out a lot about different departments and what they do to help our residents who are vulnerable and in need. So they're compiling a document of services that we can share on all of our online platforms and around town. And then what we want to do is train staff to create staff boards and committees to create sensors in the community to find folks that are in need and who need the assistance that we have. We have this great network of assistance. We want to make sure that it's all coordinated and make sure it's connected to where people need to go. So ideally, someone would log into the website and they would find, how do I get help? And then they would find this document and that would connect them to the service and that would make things faster. So that's a target level below the provider. Say for a senior, you're looking at someone's adult children looking to find assistance. This is a route they can go. So just another layer of help. So I think our COA has the seniors on lockdown. We need that next layer of assistance. How do we get connected to the service? Joan Carroll and the COHS staff took the lead on compiling this document, and we'll have it for you in the future to look at. Some ongoing projects, Jen and our town clerk staff, both of our town clerk and assistant town clerk worked with representatives from Civic Plus to kick off the website redesign. So most of this is already paid for. So this is something that I know you've been talking about for a while. This will begin in earnest with some goal setting and some initial design. And I talked to the providers and they didn't want to give me a date, but then I made them. And now that is mid-April is when we're looking to launch the new website. So that should be a pretty meetable target. Encourage the board to continue to look at the select board calendar. David and Barney put a great deal of time into organizing this calendar for the coming year. It also includes nested priorities and goals. I think it's great for transparency purposes and planning for the board. So that is been a big project and something that you've been working on, and I've been happy to help in any way. All right, so now we're up to some action items. So job reclassification, and you might have some questions here. So I'm analyzing the HRS services compensation study, which the board was presented in one of my first meetings I attended. I do think that we need to continue to analyze that, and some more information needs to come to you before the budget process, but not today. But 3 positions I do think we need to suspend classifications for, which is the town planner, the assistant town administrator, and the assistant assessor. So none of these positions exist on the current scale. They've only been talked about hypothetically and based on market, or talking to candidates that we've had, and what I've done in analyzing with department heads, the job descriptions. I think we just need to hire these folks within the parameters of the original classifications and then classify them once their jobs are defined and decided. So the reason why I'm asking for this, it's budget neutral in FY23 because we're so far into the year. If we do offer above the initial, it's not going to change the FY23 budget, but it will have implications in FY24 and beyond. So I'm asking that you support me in suspending those classifications so that we can properly hire these folks. And I can bring that information on hiring to you any way you want, whether we decide it beforehand or now. I'm talking specifically about hiring levels. What are we going to hire people at when they come in?
So can I ask a clarification? So if let's say you have a negotiation with the ATA, come up with a salary, I should know this, but I don't recall it. So is that salary by itself a wage and class thing in a scale, or is the wage or the class like an 8 or a 10 or whatever, is that for that position? And they're not really saying it clearly, but do we look across town and say somebody, I'll just pick a number, somebody's making, $85,000 a year, that puts them in a certain band of class? Or do they have to be an ATA, and then within that, so how does that work?
So ideally you would have the position classified, and when you hire someone, you would hire them at step one to the initial steps based on experience for that position. These positions are new, so they've just been put into the pot.
I get that part. I guess I'm not really saying it well, but once you set a salary, and I agree with you, you should have a salary negotiation, not a wage and class negotiation. But does it automatically then become some band in our system or?
Yeah, I think
I understand. So we're trying to, if I was to give you what I'm trying to do over with our assistant town administrator, the HRS study is not in line with what we've advertised the position for. We had this conversation a while ago. So rather than say, well, we're just going to go with one or the other, we should be building towards, let's get there in a certain amount of years. But we need to initially hire this person. I believe we should do moving towards where we want to get, not where we should be. So we should be hiring people the way we should advertise. This is the band for your job and hire that way. But we need to make sure the bands are correct.
Right.
And I think what we're finding in our experience is that our current bands are not correct.
Yeah.
The bands are not correct.
Some are, some are.
Well, some
Well,
of
I mean,
them, you know,
that-
what came
for
out.
those that we're looking for right
Yeah.
now, whether like the assistant assessor, I think we're having trouble probably because we're not.
Because our own guideline is too low for that position.
Well, it's what are you trying to hire? So if you're trying to hire an administrative assistant to the chief assessor,
Yeah.
that's one band. If you're trying to hire an assistant assessor, which is what the board of assessors is trying to hire, that's a different band.
Right.
So you need a whole,
But then the bands themselves may not be at market, is what you're saying.
that is, I think the board.
That wage and class study did show that in
Right.
some cases.
Some are, some
Yeah.
aren't.
Yeah.
And there needs to be equity. So a lot of the times towns will build their plan around what they already have. So there's not equity amongst like jobs. We're pretty close, but there's some adjustments that need to be made.
Right. So you would like a motion tonight to support suspending the proposed classifications for the town planner, the assistant town administrator, and the assistant assessor?
Yes.
Is that the motion?
Let us hire at market,
Okay,
understanding that we will not go beyond what the budget will allow.
okay. So who would like to make that motion?
I move that we support hiring 3 positions. The assistant town administrator, the planner, town planner, and the assistant assessor. Did I say
At market rate?
at market rate?
I wouldn't say it that way. I would simply say we move to
Suspend?
Suspend the ban.
Okay,
Do you mind a
no,
friendly?
that's fine. I'll accept the friendly amendment.
So the friendly amendment, do you want to state it, David?
My understanding is, as Ryan wrote it, we move to suspend the
Yes.
proposed classifications for the town planner, assistant town administrator, and assistant assessor positions such that the town administrator can conduct market-based salary negotiations.
Is there a
I'll-
second?
I'll second that.
Excellent. Any discussion?
You'll come back to us with all, it's just a process.
Right.
Okay,
You would
great.
be surprised.
All right, a roll call vote, please. All in favor. Arnold, I. Nathan? You're muted.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't realize I was muted. Brown eye.
Modell, I.
Reed, I.
Snell, aye.
Excellent, thank you. It's unanimous. And the next item.
Okay, some more surplus equipment. So Joan and the COHS staff continue to work in the Clark room space. We have 21 chairs, old chairs that are infamous now in town, that are now surplus. So we are asking you vote them surplus so we can remove them from town hall.
May I have a motion?
I move.
I
to-
move we declare
what are we
the-
doing with it?
Are these the big black ones that are in there?
Oh, no, not the big black ones. They're the blue ones.
This the
The
Uh,
stacking chairs.
I got it. Okay.
Yeah, I'm surprised there's only 21. It looks like there's a whole lot more.
Yeah, what will people sit in when we get rid of these chairs?
So we have the new ones and they're going to be coming in as stock allows and we'll continue to move chairs out. So we'll have enough for programming. So there'll be no stop and services. We'll surplus them.
Wish we were getting rid of the big black ones.
Nope, those are staying.
Ah, darn it.
All right, so let's put a motion on the floor, please.
What are we moving now?
We're making-
declaring, I move that we
Yeah.
declare 21 stacking chairs surplus.
I'm sorry, David's right. I messed up. So it's 21 new chairs. We're declaring all the old chairs surplus.
No, that's what
My
I thought. I
apologies.
was
Yeah.
more than.
My apologies.
Okay,
Okay,
so I move that we declare all the old stacking chairs as surplus.
Second.
any discussion? All right,
This
these
is
are
the
the
stacking
ones
chairs in the
room.
Clark room, right?
Yeah,
I think
in the Clark room. Okay,
Uh,
All the
so
old
does
chairs
that-
in
Sorry,
town.
before we vote.
Yeah.
Does that mean you're free to sell them, eBay them, scrap them, whatever, right? We don't care at this point.
Well, we'd
All of
like
the above.
recycled if
Are
possible.
they old enough that the historical commission?
No.
Nathan.
good try. But yeah, ideally, we somehow recycle them if possible, but all right, we'll see what happens. All righty, we're ready to do a roll call vote. All those in favor, Arnold, I.
Brown eye.
What do I?
Reed, I.
Snell, I.
Excellent. That carries unanimously. And then on to the Savoyard Light Opera Company.
Yes, so that company will perform the Pirates of Penzance in the Corey Auditorium in the Carlisle Public Schools on November 12th, 13th, 18th, 19th, and 24th. To increase community awareness about this upcoming production, the group is requesting your permission to suspend a banner on School Street by the War Memorial measuring 2 feet in height and 16 feet in width. The banner will contain promotional information about the upcoming performances, including dates and location. The banner will hang from October 15th through November 20th.
I move that we authorize the hanging of a banner across schools. It's School Street there or Church Street?
Schools.
It's School Street. Let's see. From October 15th through November 20th for the Savoyards performance of Pirates of Penzance.
You have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call vote, please. All those in favor? Arnold, I.
Brown eye.
What do I?
Reed, I.
Snell, I.
Thank you. And that passes.
All right, next item. We received a request from the Massachusetts Department of Agricultural Resources, MDAR, regarding annual appointments of our annual inspectors. I am asking for you to approve the nominations of Deb Toher and Jean Delano for their continued service, and would just say they've served in this role for some time, talking
Yes.
to folks, and they're excellent. So they have full support of those involved.
Did we not do this when we did the appointments at the beginning of this term?
Yeah.
They're
don't-
saying we didn't. So we're being
We did
thorough.
not. We got a notice from the state on this one. Or let's put it this way, if we did it, we didn't notify them or send in the paperwork.
Okay, that's something to look at in our process for next year.
Yeah,
All right, I move that we appoint Deb Toer and Jean Delano to as our animal inspectors.
Second.
You have a second.
I think
Nathan said.
Nathan
Second.
just
All
seconded
right,
it.
thanks, Nathan. Any discussion? All those in favor, roll call vote, please. Arnold, I.
Brown eye.
What do I?
Reed, I.
Snell, I.
That carries unanimously. And thank you very much to both Deb and Jean, who have already provided good service to the town.
It does beg a question though. Should we look back at all the appointments that we did and just make sure that any follow-up steps that might have been needed were done?
Yes. Will do.
Thank you.
All right, a couple items of staff recognition. So Carol from the COAHS was almost solely instrumental in the launching of the new Council on Aging and Human Services standalone website, which is carlislecohs.org. So this includes the department's new logo and name. It provides residents with an incredible amount of resources. It's easy to navigate. So Carol spent a tremendous amount of time assembling the information needed for this. And I encourage the board and others to visit the website to see not only its content, but the professionalism of our employees as they continue to exceed their job descriptions. Also, Chief John Fisher and the police department are currently wearing pink badges and patches to highlight Cancer Awareness Month. This initiative not only brings attention to a worthy cause, but also asks parties to consider adding resources to the health fight. For those looking to donate, please see Chief Fisher, join Chief Fisher and other public safety leaders by searching for his name and donating through a team page that'll be linked to here. And we'll also put it on our website and social media. It sticks out really bad when the chief walks by and he's got a pink badge. Hoping he's okay with me sharing this, but went to the schools and the kids all ask about it and they know that that's what this month means. So it's a good initiative and people should know why we're wearing different things. And that's why, to try and help a cause. Then the last thing in my report is some upcoming dates. Besides your meetings, just a couple professional development days for me. I will be out of the office those days. And then I have military training on Friday, this Friday coming up. It is the only MUTA 6, which is 3-day exercise until March. Hopefully.
And let me add just one other date of note that Chief Fisher called me about today. He wanted to make sure that we were on board with Halloween being held on Monday night, October 31st, and that the time would be from 4 to 8 p.m. for the activities in the center of town. And they will have their usual, police support there. And he'll be putting something into the Mosquito as well.
And could we put some sandwich boards in the Rotary a few days in advance, warning passers, the passers through that this will be, that they need to keep this in mind when they're commuting on that day, because we've had in the past complaints from people passing through town that we clogged, and they just need to find an alternate route on that night if necessary, or just be aware that that's going to happen.
Yeah, well, and the chief has some signs that they've used in the past.
Yeah, I think.
Which I mentioned to him this afternoon. He said, yeah, they'll do that again.
Okay.
Yeah.
There he is on cue.
Perfect. And then the budget calendar you've had in here. And that's really just for us to review and note where we have a role. Oh, by the way, I just want to go back and make sure that everybody notes that in November, our first meeting will be on the 15th of November, not the 8th, because that's election day. Okay. So then, unless there's something, David, that I noticed that our calendar is in here again, which is great. And the various committees, but I don't think we need to do anything more about that.
The first line in the Carlisle budget calendar says approve the budget calendar on October 11th. So it looks like
all right.
want to do that.
All right. So I guess we should take a motion on this. Okay.
I have incorporated, unless they changed, I incorporated those dates on your Carlisle letterhead calendar in the spreadsheet that follows it. In the second, the third column. It's in caps. If it's sort of a budget town meeting related event, it's in caps. Master schedule.
So this budget calendar also includes the town meeting being held on May 8th, and it also includes the town election on May 16th. Are we ready to approve this calendar tonight? Because we could go ahead and put a motion on the floor to accept this calendar. And then
I have a question or two before we
do,
but
well, why don't we take questions then first before we approve this or make any changes before we take a vote?
This is obviously a different process than what we've done in the past, because the budget guidelines normally were sent out by the FinCom, not by us. Have they been brought into the discussion, and are they on board with this process?
Yes, so they are coming to your meeting on the 25th to talk about budget goals and other items that they need to discuss with you. So it still will be them sending their board goals, but you're just going to be included in the process.
Okay, I personally think that's great. I think that's important, that we all rowing the boat in the same direction. And I have a question about, let's see, the opening the warrant in January. Is there any reason why it's such a compressed, it's not open until January and then it's closed in February? I mean, it seems very compressed. Is there any reason not to open it sooner?
What does opening it actually mean?
Well, it means boards and committees can start providing us with their, placeholder or their requested article.
It just seems to me it would give us more time to consider some of these things and, in our meeting schedule. But I'm just throwing that out there.
I'm trying to remember what we did last year. Did we open it earlier than January? Beginning of January?
We had never talked about it, but it was on the agenda, week in and week out on our meetings. And then, but
Definition of closing the warrant means, this is mine or other towns too. The definition is no more requests can come in. It doesn't mean you stop reviewing them.
No,
It's just a hard line to say no more.
but that's the end point. But I think what Kate is referring to is
The
we
opening.
could, for example, since according to this calendar, departments and boards are going to get guidelines from the FinCom at the end of this month, which will basically, I presume, say this is, I don't know, this is your placeholder budget, your guidance on the budget, and maybe some other words about process. We could at that point say, we're opening the warrant, November 1st, and you should start, if you have special requests, you should start getting, Barney, is the sequence select board first, then FinCom, then back to select board, or what's the do-si-do that committee would have to do?
Yes, we've typically taken a look at the warrant articles, and those that are finance related
We kick them
go to the FinCom and we get their input.
Right, so if a particular board says, okay, gee, I really think I need, a part-time position to be full-time or whatever it is, that board or committee would come to us with that request. We would look at it, and if we agree, we would send them off to FinCom for some vetting.
Yeah, that's a good question.
Or do they
It just
go
seems to me
through
the
that
earlier we
process?
know about whatever is out there, and normally, as I know that the FinCom has in the past,
Yeah.
when they send out their guideline, their first guideline, they request, certain form to be filled out. They have questions, and one of the questions always is, and do you have any capital thing or warrant items? And that's usually been done in December. And so we've been, we already start getting some of these big expenses on the radar.
Yeah, I'm fine with it. I would note that we only have one meeting scheduled for the actual month of December. But yeah, why not? Why not capture more input early?
This is only budget meetings in here, budget related there. Our regular select board meeting, we just have one in December. I think it's the
The
15th.
13th. because
13th,
the
yeah.
The fourth week would be Christmas week, so we pushed
Right.
it out to afternoons.
So we could open the warrant on October 31st when we send departments and boards guidelines for the budget.
I don't see any
think
reason
there's
not
anything
to.
wrong with that. I think that the writing, we should bring it up. We should discuss it with FinCom next meeting. But how guideline letter is crafted should be informative on process, like, I don't know exactly, still never quite
Right.
clear, but basically, here's your guideline and here's the process you follow if you either have a special request or you don't have. If you don't have a special request, I'm just making it up, but if you don't have a special request, prepare your budget and get or the thing come to get on their calendar. If you have a special request, do this, right? Talk to,
Yeah.
whatever the process.
Well, I guess I'm also thinking about, committees like CPC. I know I was at the library trustees meeting and they're kind of waiting for CPC to open their process for things. And so what I'm worried is that it gets so far down the line
Yeah, no, I
that
think
nobody
so.
has.
But
and
I
this
no, I
would
agree with the point
galvanize-
completely. I'm just saying, we need to be clear in our own self. Like what you just mentioned. The
Yeah.
Select court started and then CPC and on.
Yes,
There's a lot of links in the chain and we ought
Yeah.
to try to streamline that.
yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
I guess, though, I'd just say what we want to avoid, I think, is a committee or board coming to us with a warrant article just out of the blue, rather than if it's related to their budget requests, which it should be, right? Unless it doesn't cost anything. It would go through this process
Yeah.
rather than coming directly to us,
Okay.
just because the warrant is open.
And I guess my other
Yeah.
question is about the closing of the warrant. Many times there's big projects that need to go out to bid and the bids need to be open before you can get the final number. And I guess my question is that closing in your mind, is that closing the date that they have to have the rock solid numbers, or can that?
So in a perfect world, you'd have a first draft of the entire town meeting done on the closing date. And then as more details come in, you can edit it until you sign the warrant,
Okay,
which is the date where it says finalize the warrant. So this is just saying,
On
you can't say there's
April
going to be a
11.
new article after this date unless it's.
okay. I think
Unless
that's
it's
great.
meant to
And I
describe.
think it's nice that people would know exactly, that this
Right, which
is,
is to your point about moving it up early to give time for all these things to
yeah, and
develop.
for them to
And
ask questions.
I will add that there could be significant non-monetary, or I should say, non-budgetary things, like the Board of Health could say, we need, I don't know.
Or the governance task force,
Yeah.
right, which is coming out with their report in
Right,
December.
we would like an.
There might
article,
be
yeah,
something in there. Yeah.
Do X, Y, and Z,
Yeah.
Right.
benchmark this or whatever, and so I
Right.
think it's a good.
So- All right. So
Okay.
why don't we take a motion then to adopt this if we're ready with that change in the opening of the town meeting warrant, moving that up to whatever our closest select board meeting date is, to October 31st. Maybe it's the
So
first
we
one in
have March
November.
And April.
Right, I don't think. Wait, where's-
It's on the next page.
I'm sorry, which? date?
Well, I'm looking for a select board meeting date to be the opening of the warrant,
Oh,
right? So we're meeting on the 25th of October in 2
It's,
weeks, and then
it's
we're meeting
November
on the
15th.
15th. So it'd be November 15th. Does that work for everybody? To
That's
be
fine.
the opening of the warrant? Okay. So we changed that January 3rd date to November 15th. So with that change, may I have a motion to accept this budget calendar?
I move to accept the budget calendar with the change as noted.
May I have a second?
Second.
I think I heard Nathan.
Oh, Nathan, did you second?
Seconded.
Okay.
Yeah, I did.
Great. Any more discussion? All right, hearing none, roll call vote, please. All those in favor, Arnold, I.
Brown eye.
Modell, I.
Reed, I.
Snell, eye.
Excellent. The calendar is approved, and please note, annual town meeting will be May 8th and the annual town election will be May 16th. Okay, are we ready to move on to liaison reports?
Can I just, one more thing I'd like to mention, so.
Oh, we have to look at the draft agenda too, but I'm just noting the time too, so,
Okay,
yeah,
just-
David.
Well, as I said, the calendar's living document, right? So if I had a couple pieces of feedback about the calendar. I don't remember exactly, but I think Nathan, you were gonna check on your availability for one of the days, I think 29.
He said
And he
was-
did.
He did reply.
Oh, he did, okay, so, and then if there anything else that you either think should be on there, or there's a date issue, we're just gonna keep it up to date, and then eventually I think we should talk about, maybe we'll just simply post it on the website so everybody can see, but we're not there yet. So if you have input, keep sending. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, that's it on the town administrator's report, except we do need to take a quick look at the draft agenda, and then we can
Yeah.
look at what Kate just passed out. We should bear in mind, though, that we have invited the maybe we should switch it around, actually. Why don't we go ahead and start with the facilities committee, and we can come back to the agenda afterwards. Yeah.
Scott is here for that.
Who's that?
Scott Triola.
Oh, Scott is. Is this fairly quick?
Yeah, I think it should.
It
be
looks
quick.
lengthy, but
No,
okay.
I can tell you
Okay,
in 2 sentences.
okay.
I'm sorry, what is the topic that we're on now?
Hi, Scott. So Scott Triola's joined us from the ARPA committee. Kate, or Scott, do you want to review what you would like us to vote on tonight?
I'm happy. You want to do a stop?
Do that.
The select board already authorized $187,715 for air conditioning, Wilkins. And but we have to follow certain procurement standards, and so we asked somebody to vet that whole process. And one of the things that he recommended is that we really need to vet the specifications of the proposal that was been submitted, from which we took this number from the vendor, and that we have to have specifications drawn up so we could go out to bid on the project, and to ensure that we do the proper procurement process. And so we now have another proposal from NV for $29,900 to do engineering to review what we need for air conditioning, and make sure that what is proposed in this $187,000 project will be adequate at the end of the day. So ARPA committee is asking for the support of the select board to grant a $29,900. Oh, 30,000. There's the.
All right, so you want to make that motion?
Sure. Select board approves an expenditure of $30,000 in ARPA funds to be used for Wilkins HVAC engineering study, bid documentation, and project oversight.
Questions, discussion?
Hi.
Oh, sorry,
Did-
Travis
you-
is,
no,
I
you
do need a
just-
second, yeah. Thanks, Travis. Travis seconded. Yeah, David. Did you?
I don't know if
Oh,
I
no.
second that. I
Oh.
was just gonna offer
Well,
comment.
I'll second
Oh,
it so
sorry.
we can move on.
Okay.
Well, I second it.
Okay.
So now my question, at that size, $30,000 doesn't have to be competitively bid, or can we get it to be NV5?
Right. It does not need to be competitively bid.
Really?
Right, because under
Under
federal
50.
guidelines, under 100,000 doesn't have to be.
Is this money also coming from ARPA, the 30,000?
Yes.
Okay. And then last question, so that's 16% of the base project. Is that a normal amount I would spend on getting specs and things like that?
I think it is in the right ballpark. And the major thing is, of course, that, we got these numbers from a vendor.
Yeah.
We were all excited about it because it was so much less than the 300 and plus prices that we had gotten for a different system. But we really never did that engineering to make sure that this was actually really the right thing to do. So, we might even, after that engineering is done, we don't know, we might come back and say, oh, guess what?
Right.
that wasn't such a hot idea. So it's $30,000, which would be
May
very
I
well
ask our
spent.
resident AC expert, Mr. Rizzo, for his opinion? Well, it's about $30,000 to spec out a
Bill, if you would.
$200,000 aircon project.
Off the cuff.
Off the cuff here, Bill, yeah.
What's the design going to be for? Or is it going to be?
It's the mini splits and Wilkins
Okay, and it's a feasibility study or is it an engineering
engineering specs and
specifications? for
specifications.
contracts?
and yes,
And also it includes the oversight.
and oversight.
I think it's reasonable.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Kate, how much, just remind me on the ARPA funds, where are we with ARPA funds and if we're allocating this?
Got, I don't have that spreadsheet in front of me.
I have it in front of me.
I figured you would.
So we Carlisle was allocated a total of $1,567,000 in ARPA funds. To date, we've actually received all of that at this point. So we just received the last payment. We've approved just under 600,000, 597,000 has been approved to projects. Less than half of that has actually been spent, but that's what's committed. So with this amount, we would have committed approximately 630,000, which is about 60% of what we've been allocated. We'd have about $942,000 left in ARPA funds.
Great, thank you.
Any other comments, questions?
I saw some questions coming in on the chat. I just wanted to note that Andy Paquette has been involved in this process, and he's the individual who we're working with from an ARPA standpoint to ensure federal procurement requirements are satisfied. So he's been involved from that standpoint, but also from the school side because he is also supporting them in some business management functions. So some of the questions about procurement, yes, there are specific procurement requirements. He's overseeing that, as we've had this gap in capabilities internally. The engineering firm NV5, as Kate said, would do the construction documents, they do all that, and they would also oversee the RFP process, not necessarily from a procurement standpoint, but just from an assessment standpoint. And Andy would be involved in the procurement. And Ryan, I'm not sure what your role is vis-a-vis procurement, but obviously if you're going to be doing that work as well, we would certainly involve you.
Yeah, I would ask for some time to review this. Just to make sure it meets procurement guidelines.
Right. Well, these are federal procurement guidelines that we're trying to follow, which is why we hired Andy Paquette, because his group has expertise for federal procurement.
Correct. We still have state procurement guidelines that we have to just make sure that we're meeting.
We could typically what we've done is if something's been approved, we won't release the funds until it's been signed off on from a procurement standpoint. So if the concern is that, that this won't meet procurement guidelines, myself, Kelly Byer, Andy, we make sure that everything is meeting procurement requirements before we would actually authorize any fund release.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? All right. Well, then let us vote on the motion, please. Roll call vote. All in favor. Arnold, aye.
Brown abstain. I missed most of it. My internet went down.
Oh, sorry.
Modell, aye.
Reed, aye.
Snell, aye.
All right. So note that 4 aye and 1 abstention. So the motion carries. Thank you. Thank you, Bill.
Thank you, Bill.
Okay, let us move on then to the Municipal Facilities Committee, which we're very happy to have join us tonight. And would you like to come up and sit at whatever chair you'd like, and there's a mic,
This around
one
the
mic
table.
for you. Yeah, if you want to pull up around
Around
the
the
edge of this table. That's great. And is there anyone online, Jerry, that's okay, all right.
Steve Bastek, I think I saw online. I don't know if he.
Oh, yes, I see it there too. All right, well, welcome. And I know Travis says the liaison. Do you want to do a little just a quick update on your discussion about what they're going to talk about? Or do you want to let Jerry do that?
I think Jerry is quite capable
Yes.
of talking about this.
Thank you, Travis.
But I did want to ask, is this a meeting? Or and if so, should we open a meeting for our?
Posted as a meeting.
Is it?
Then-
Okay.
My understanding was we didn't need to, but I thought I'd do it anyway, just to be short.
Why don't we then officially open a meeting?
Okay,
with the
well,
municipal?
then I call this joint meeting of the select board and facilities committee to order.
Great.
42,
8:42.
8:42. It's not
And-
42 somewhere.
Thank you, Jerry, for making, I know you had to dash back.
Thank you for accommodating my schedule.
Yeah, good. Yeah, so tell us
Well,
what you're up to. In less than,
well, I'm not sure exactly where to start.
oh, wait, can you move that toward, yeah.
We could talk about the charter, which I have some
yeah.
questions about. I can tell
Questions.
you the things that we're doing and what we plan to be doing.
Yeah, why don't we start with that? And then we could take a look at take your comments on the charter as well
Okay,
at the end. Yeah.
well,
Oh, wait.
When
go
we,
ahead.
we had kind of 4 questions, I think, that we put out to the committee. And the select board has kind of tried to institutionalize as far as what we're trying to do with each of these. So, and those are in there, but we're going in that direction too. But I just think it's
Okay.
important that
Do you want to take it in order then?
we
Oh.
are.
Oh,
in
okay.
That thing.
Okay.
well, let's see, there are numerous projects that we have in various stages. The most significant ones are the rooftop ventilation unit at the library, which is partly covered by a rebate from the state, and the rest will be covered by ARPA money. We have the specifications to redo a major part of the roof at the library, but that project has been specified and the documents have been drawn up. It hasn't been put out to bid because we don't want to start that project until the rooftop unit is in place.
I just have a question because I was just at the trustees meeting tonight and they are having a leak there and I couldn't remember whether that roofing addresses where that leak is.
No, I'm not
I hope it's in
sure.
a different spot.
There have been, Steve Bastek has been working to keep the drains clear of leaves, and my understanding is that, well, the only leak that I know about was a small one and attributed to drains being clogged.
Oh, okay. So,
But there may be other ones.
yeah, no, it was the one that had to do with
So
the
the other projects we're working on at the library are expanding the mechanical room so it can accommodate the PFAS filtering system and also just allow enough room in there for things to be serviced properly. Right now, it's incredibly crammed and there's not much room to maneuver. The architects have drawn that up and that's about ready to go out to bid. We're waiting for the final specs on the PFAS filtering. Another project that we're looking at is putting in an entire building management system at the library. And that would be done in conjunction with the renovation project because it would involve running wires and maybe pipes. And if they're tearing up walls or rearranging walls, that would be a convenient time to do that sort of work.
Sorry I don't know what a management system would mean at the library.
It allows control of the heating system, the cooling system, all the little fan coil units in all the 43 or so different windows.
right now they're all separate systems. They can't be
Oh.
controlled remotely. They can't be set on timers so that you can program it so that it spins up temperature if there's a meeting.
Okay. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. I'm surprised we did that whole renovation without, you know,
It wasn't
didn't
a
exist.
thing at the
I
time.
see. Yeah.
So those are the major projects that are in the works. There are several other things that are lurking, and those are repairing various elevators, repairing the roof and the rooftop unit at Town Hall, expanding the salt shed at the DPW, putting a new roof on the DPW garage. Those are all large ticket items.
Hmm.
Leave anything out?
And I might add, they're large ticket items that were identified how many years ago by the engineering firm? I think Nathan was on the committee at the time and spearheaded that study. TBA, yeah.
Yeah.
That was
2017.
2017. So it's a list that we've been chipping away at. And of course, as we chip away at the ones at the bottom, there's some new things that come up to the top.
Yeah, yeah.
And some more important, and sometimes more than just the top. Sometimes there are urgent things that crop up.
Oh, yeah, well, I'm not sure I call it a big item. As people may know, the elevator at the police station
That's right.
has been failing and is now failed and decommissioned and is being replaced by a ramp. That contract has been put out, and we have a vendor, and we're suffering from supply chain issues, so they can't get. We're waiting for parts to come in for them to actually install it.
So I think from the select board, we're really interested in, and that's helpful because it gives, I'm on the committee, so I'm familiar with all these items, but it gives us an input into what the committee is doing. But now if we could talk about the charter and kind of what the committee should be doing. And then, we had talked about some goals or what you think would be helpful, as a committee to better support you, or what we could do to help support you.
Well, there are short-term and long-term goals. The short-term goals, I have some questions about the charter and what it says we're supposed to do and how that relates to what we actually do. And then there are long-term goals, which is where I think town maintenance should be sometime in the future, whether that's next year or 5 years, but it's a place where I think we need to be. And where would you like to start? Well, let's take the big picture, because I think that's easier to describe.
Perfect.
Most towns have a buildings and grounds department that is charged by the town to maintain the town structures and streets and physical plant. That department has a budget and a staff of people that make all that stuff happen. Here in Carlisle, we have a DPW that does a wonderful job dealing with the streets and some aspects of town buildings. We don't really have a maintenance department. We have Steve Bastek, who is wonderful and a very hands-on guy and does a lot of great things. He doesn't have a budget, and he doesn't have a staff to help him with doing things. I think where we should be as a town is to have a department that has a budget and has a staff that has spending authority for that budget. And there should be a regime of spending that for maintenance. I'm just going to pick some numbers, but there should be some breakpoints. Let's say things under $10,000, the maintenance department should be able to just do. And that will come out of their budget and have to meet the same budget requirements of every other department. Things over over $10,000, but less than $100,000 would have to be approved by the facilities committee. And things over $100,000 would be approved by the select board on recommendation of the facilities committee. So that's where the way things are working right now is Steve handles a lot of the day-to-day maintenance stuff, and he does a great job with that. All of the decisions about maintenance and all of the spending authority right now rests with the facilities committee. I think the town facilities manager has a budget of a few $1,000s to handle paper and copies and things, but he doesn't really have any money to spend.
Yeah. And I have long advocated for a policy. We, all these buildings are assets. Assets need to be protected and maintained, or they lose their value. And usually there's a rule of thumb about what percentage of the value of an asset should be spent in its maintenance every year. And we don't even have, at this point, an accurate estimate of the value of our assets. That was illustrated by the library when they wanted to do their plans for their renovation. They were told that their building was worth, $1.5 million or something. Well, it's not worth $1.5 million. Maybe it was worth $1.5 million 20 years ago. It's worth a lot more than that today. And, you just don't want those assets to fall apart or burn or whatever, So I think we should be working towards a yearly budget of a certain percentage of the value of our buildings, and we should require also that the buildings be adequately evaluated for what they're worth, because not let that slip either.
And there's some issues with how to fund that. If it's funded by the yearly appropriation, then that money will disappear at the end of the year. A lot of these maintenance things take a long time to do, and they don't come up on a regular basis. They often will come up as large costs that don't occur very often. Right now, we're kind of funding it through warrant articles that have a 3-year lifetime, but that may not be enough either. And that money right now has to be voted out by the facilities committee. The town maintenance people can't spend that on their own, even if it's for $10.
Wait,
putting
so
it
you're
in,
saying, so when you, the town maintenance people, you're really talking about Steve
Yeah.
Bastek. So he has to come to the facilities committee for basically spending anything.
yes,
Unless it comes down.
unless it's within his very meager budget.
Right. Got it.
And I know like the library, that I forget what it was, he just replaced some fans,
Yeah,
the fans in the bathroom.
the library bought the fans.
The library
And he
bought the
did
fans and he did the work, which saved the library a huge amount of
sure.
money,
Sure. Yeah.
but
So
Yeah.
the funding mechanism, if you do things like put money into a reserve fund that would accumulate, that's great, but the problem is getting that money out.
Mm.
My understanding is it has to be taken out by town meeting, or it's not easy to move money out of reserve fund. It's a convenient place to accumulate those funds so that you have an adequate supply of funding to handle big maintenance items as they come up. But that's a problem to solve at another time, because we're not there now. But that's where we should be.
I tend to agree, and I've really been pushing for this, and I know Kate, you have as well, but I think that this is a really unique opportunity in Carlisle's trajectory, because we have a new town administrator and we're kind of thinking about how we're going to, make our government efficient and, potentially, shift things around so that our structure and policies, reflect that kind of goal, I guess. And so this is I think a great place to start with that. But there are a lot of stakeholders in all this too. I mean, I noticed that the two chiefs are here, the fire chief and the police chief, and they both have, representation of their own physical structures where they work, and, they have input on that. And so if the thought is we want to head into a direction of something more centralized, I think we need to, evaluate that and take all those different, things into consideration. As to how
Well, the main thing to consider, right now, we have two facilities managers.
We have two what?
Two facilities managers. We have the
okay.
town facility manager, Steve Bastek,
Yeah.
and we have the school facility manager, Stephen Kearney, who
Mhm.
has a staff of people, and he has a much larger physical plant to maintain, and it has certain stringent requirements. I don't know that there's a lot of duplication between those two things, but there could certainly be more synergy than we have right now.
Mhm.
There's those two people cooperate and share information a lot, but having it in a more centralized way, both in terms of decision making and maybe in terms of funding, might make sense for the town.
Now, I thought that was something that was
We've
being
been-
explored pretty
We've been talking about
extensively.
it, but
Yeah.
I mean, there
but
are,
no-
well, we haven't made it happen yet.
But there's interest on both sides.
Yeah,
in
the
doing
school would be giving up some of their staff time, and in return for that, they would want something from the town to compensate for that, and we haven't worked out what exactly what that would look like.
Mhm.
So they both participate in your meetings?
Yeah,
Okay. I mean, that was the vision when we formed it, right? Was that, the physical assets, as Kate says, are, they have common problems, roofs, windows, gutters,
Yes.
whatever, right? So you kind of look at the whole portfolio. What I'm hearing are is kind of a two-part thing. I don't see any reason why we couldn't develop a town facilities maintenance budget this cycle based on your knowledge of what's needed, and then just figure out how to allocate that between the school and the town, or maybe the school already has its budget maintenance in its budget. Seems to me we ought to be able to do that this year. The structural change, if we were to make a single department and how we split the labor and blah, 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 that probably takes a while to, do. We could do that next year if we commit to working through that process. Are they separate like that? Or you'd all-
it's slightly more complicated than that, because one of the things that we've looked at right now, the library has money in their budget for maintenance. The fire department has some money for maintenance. The police chief has some money for maintenance. Town hall has money for maintenance, and they all spend that however they need to. We've talked about taking that money out of the departments and putting it into the maintenance department.
Right.
That's another thing that we could do. It's not, I don't think I think it sounds easier than it really is, because identifying how much is spent on maintenance in various different buildings is more than looking at a line item in their budget.
Well, there's money and then there's the labor. So with the two chiefs, who does the work when you need maintenance? That's not, say, contracted outside. You have your guys do it, or how do you get the work done? You need a light bulb.
We don't do our stuff as much as they do.
John, would you mind? Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, so.
Yeah.
So in all honesty, David, I pilfer the expertise of Bill frequently, Steve frequently. It's just the way we solve problems. Our maintenance budget's not extensive. is actually pretty low. But we get the most out of it. I mean, I think we've been able to,
I'm not questioning.
do that,
I'm saying,
but yeah.
who actually lifts or turns a wrench or, changes the light bulb or.
Oh, but
So
I
we'll-
mean, a couple of years ago, you were contracting for maintenance on the handicap lift. And I mean, you were handling all of that and paying for it
Right.
out of your budget.
So we manage that stuff, but routine stuff on and off with sprinklers and stuff like that. We'll give it a run. Some of the members there, we'll just give it a run. And if we can't figure it out, Bill and Steve are my first calls.
Yeah.
And then a lot of times it's not tongue in cheek. I don't even know how much money Bill saved me, and Steve. But it's significant. I'd say probably on the order of $10,000 a year minimum. And they've headed off some real big boneheaded maneuvers we could have made if I listened to some of the contractors that come in and give us prices. But it's probably easier to talk to Brian because my stuff is kind of, I'm in normally $10,000, sub $10,000 range.
Yeah.
I think Brian's is a little more substantial.
General maintenance, put those for you too.
That's true.
All the power.
Yeah, so in
All
terms
the
of
what?
maintenance of all of the buildings, Al does a lot more than his job description would look like.
We're talking about retired Al?
Yes, retired Al.
Whose hours were
He
cut
is working.
back? Yeah.
He is working for all our buildings and he's doing the work.
Yeah.
He's doing,
He'll replace the floor, like replace the floor and
he'll-
done it 2 floors for us, right? 2 floors, he'll take care of the treads on the stairs when they wear out. He'll take care of the treads on the stairs when they wear out at the police station, so he does a lot of work.
he does a lot of replacing of electric fans, the fans and the thing, the lights and all that in other buildings. In ours, we have our own facilities manager, so one of our lieutenants, that
You
is
have
his job.
somebody of one of your.
That's his job to do that. And as an organization, that's what we do is maintain things, right? So that's kind of what we are.
So what's when we formed the committee a while back, the pro, let's say, I'm gonna summarize and I'll probably be inaccurate, but the compelling reason to do it, to even have an MFC and then to further have maybe a single department was to me, or what I remember is twofold. Economy of scale, you're just doing more of the things and you can rationalize, figure out the best practice, blah, blah, blah. And just having the expertise, like all the expertise is resident somewhere for everything. But the con is losing a bit of local-
There's more than just that. The chief librarian shouldn't be spending her
Right,
time
right, and
maintaining
nor
the
should the
building.
police, neither.
And
should-
she doesn't want to do that.
Right.
Um,
Well,
Brian's
so that-
people do want to do it.
Well, right, so that's where I'm going with this, Jerry, is the con is loss of local control. And to your point, that probably matters most to Brian and maybe to the schools, where they really. And I was on school committee when we did it, and I was concerned that, we need to replace a window at the school, and we got to go through another layer in town to get approval because there's a standard window package or a standard vendor, and is that efficient? So I guess, to me, it seems like the commingling of the funds and the allocation of the funds would be the easy part. But that's why I was asking the question, who does it? The personnel and the local decision. Okay, Brian, I need to do this. I just want to do it. I don't want to have to go through another committee and yada, yada, yada. So what's your thought on that?
I think that for most of the buildings in town, the people that occupy and run those buildings aren't really interested in doing maintenance on them. They would just like to come in to an office that's warm and doesn't leak and the lights are on and they are happy for somebody else to do that. Brian's situation is a little different and that's fine. The only concern that I would have if people are doing maintenance on their own structures is that the town be aware of it so that we know that it's done according to code and we have historical knowledge of what's happened so that 10 years from now, when we need to fix it, we can figure out what was done.
So I think DPW is another group that kind of does its own thing to a large extent. So, the library, town hall are the buildings that are the bigger issue.
I've lost track of what your recommendation is then.
Well, I mean, my recommendation is that at some time in the future, we have a maintenance department, and whether it is a buildings and grounds department that folds in maintenance and stuff that DPW does is something that I think we should think about and talk about. But having one entity that's responsible for the town's physical plant, I think makes sense. And we know it gets funded properly. It has proper staff. I would very much like the Municipal Facilities Committee not to be making decisions about day-to-day maintenance operation.
So you're separating then that day-to-day maintenance stuff from sort of long-term capital planning and all that kind of
Yes.
stuff.
So that's where I think we should be sometime in the future. That's not where we are now.
In more of an oversight than, I really, Bill Rizzo and others have just do such an amazing job of the volunteer work of their expertise. And that's very valuable, but we have counted on that for so long. And I just worry that, right. We need to do a better job, from what I've seen, at least being part of this committee, of institutionalizing our facilities rather than having it just, here's an expert in town and we're going to rely solely or 90% on that expert. And it's great for bigger picture decisions and for, as we said, capital decisions that are larger than a certain dollar amount, and strategic thinking is great to have the committee and an oversight. But I think the day-to-day stuff needs to somehow be folded into something more with the town.
Or at the very least, the MFC needs a larger staff, possibly.
Well, not the MFC, the town.
Okay, fine. Well, I was just thinking that the town needs a larger staff because the MFC is doing is in the weeds all the time, doing things that a professional staff should be doing.
If I could add to that, it's not just that, it's clarifying to the professional staff what they are and are not allowed to do. So if you don't give any spending authority to Steve, and I won't speak for Steve, but if I was Steve, I would say, I don't know what I'm allowed to do or not do, and I don't know what budget control I do or don't. So I don't think it's a funding problem. I think the funding is there. It's how you divvy up the funding. So if you approved 500,000 at town meeting for facilities, then 10% of that goes to ongoing maintenance, 100% goes to design. And then the rest goes to large projects that are already laid out in a long-term plan, and Master Facilities Committee should be overseeing that. But I can help with design. Steve can execute projects. All of that can be divvied up. So I'm not sure it's a staff problem as much as a clarity problem. Is what do you want your staff to do, and empower them to do it, and they will. I can tell you, I'm not sure how to manage maintenance for you in the current structure and charge, because I believe all the power has been given to the MFC with a staff member to assist them. So you almost get someone who's helping the MFC do the micromanaging rather than empowering the staff member to execute the MFC's vision.
Well, I can tell you, it's not the members of the MFC that wanted that structure.
Well, but that's but what is we're
trying to
decide where we're going.
You're talking about this town law, right? So you want a town administrator in the budget process, but you're trying to figure out how the town administrator fits in that budget process. The same thing with the facilities manager. You want a facilities manager and you want control. It's deciding how that facilities manager executes the vision. Those are tough decisions because you're going to give someone power, and then it takes away control. And
Yeah, because what I'm hearing from you, Jerry, is something around, what I wrote down was, 10,000 and under, the staff person is
I'm
in
not
power.
sure those are the right.
Right,
type,
but there's basically some delineation of, yeah, you have control for items that are under this
Yes,
amount.
I don't,
and-
I think we should give the maintenance staff power to do stuff. I
Yeah.
don't think we should give them power to build new buildings.
Right,
So,
Right.
so somewhere there's
Right.
a,
yeah, I think we'd all be in agreement
Right.
on that.
But if
Yeah.
you said to Steve, here's your budget, here are your two maintenance folks who are great, the Als. You know, you also have DPW staff, and here's the project you need to get done, do it. He can then work with me and others to find who you need to get that project done, especially if it's a low dollar amount. Right now, you identify it, you go back to the committee decides whether or not that should be allocated down. And it just takes a while. Doing a $5,000 maintenance project shouldn't take more than a day to decide.
right, and that was, since we meet every 2 weeks, it's gonna take at least 2 weeks.
Right.
Yeah, that's the other thing.
Should that be part of DPW, as you're saying? Should that?
Depends on the task.
Yeah,
So if they have seasonally more time to do something, then there should be a conversation there. Is do we have existing staff that accomplish?
Well,
Maybe.
I mean, you'd have to add budget and staff if you're adding mission. But I mean, I heard you say that, Jerry. I heard some part of it. You mentioned that towns have building and grounds departments. Do they also have DPWs or those
No.
are the DPW?
They have a buildings and grounds department that does the functions that our DPW
Right. Okay.
and
so
our maintenance people
I
do.
don't want to get hung up on nomenclature. I mean, is that all one department at the end of the day? Fix things,
For us, or
well, for any town. I mean, any town, really, just from a function standpoint.
I think it could be.
It depends on the town and how they say they want it done.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Can I ask a few questions and make a few statements as somebody new to this? I've been on this for a year now, the school committee and the MFC. And right, we've been talking about this synergy between the school and the town. And so like what you just said makes a lot of sense, except for that we also have the school and right, we have the DPW. We have all these little pockets. We have all these little committees and pockets and things that aren't working. And I'm not like trying to be, but they're not really working together. And like, I know the school needs new phones. I know you guys already got new phones. And school's looking at getting new phones. And then I think new town hall needs new phones. So we've been talking about this for a year, but nobody's on board to get one new phone thing so that I guess it's less money if we're all on the same kind of thing. Cause if the calls come out, like, I don't know, I'm not.
Carrie, we've been talking about phones.
I know, for
5
3 years,
not just
I know,
1 year.
forever. So my question is like, who makes this decision to make this move? What I feel we need is right. We need some kind of centralized facilities committee, whatever you want to call it, where it's not the 5 of us or however many of us are on MFC every 2 weeks going, okay, we can do this, that there's somebody who goes, that window's broken here, we need to fix it, who can put in a PO or whatever they're called.
A ticket.
Right. We don't have that now. Right. Like Steve fixes things if people buy him fans to put it in the thing. He can't go buy anything himself. But who makes that decision?
Right.
Who
directs
goes,
where he spends his
okay,
time.
Steve, you're now whoever, and you're, and then like with Stephen Kearney, who is our guy here at the school has said, we're more than happy to help out with the town help, the DPW helps us. But at the same time, like they need to know what the responsibilities are and they need to know what's going to be needed of them and budget wise. So it's just who makes that? And like, I feel like you got to get everybody at the table.
Yeah.
You need to talk to DPW, right? We got like everybody who has a building in this town needs to come to the table and we need to go, okay, right. Do we all want to get on the same elevator plan because we got elevator issues here all the time. That kind of stuff. Where does that start and who starts it? And how do we get it going? Because I'm slightly impatient and I've been here a year and we keep talking about the same thing and nothing's moving forward.
Yeah.
So that's my question.
We had a model Carver did this fairly recently. And what they did is the town administrator and the superintendent of schools talked about it and they got together and they wrote, there was an MOU and they went forward and they did have a consultant that helped them with the process. And that's a nice place to start because it's a town, it's a smaller town, it's more or less like us. Well, it's bigger than us, you're right, but
Twice.
anyway, it's not like it hasn't been done. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. And they did it at a time because I guess historically the superintendent of schools was not anxious to do any of this. Then they got a new superintendent and so they did it. But now I think we have a superintendent who would be interested in cooperating with the town. And I think we have a TA that would be interested in, setting this whole organization up. So it would be the time for you and the superintendent. I think that's where you start.
Because the same thing is that not, but Bill might decide to move to Jamaica next year. Like he's tired of the weather. We can't keep relying on just volunteers for this sort of thing. And, yeah. Yeah, my train of thought on that one.
So the phone
But-
thing,
Yeah.
you just decide who's in charge of the phone. If you tell me who's in charge of the phone, we'll do it.
IT.
That's the decision that's not made.
IT was working on that just before Tim left, and Tim was supposed to look at getting a vendor to do the design and feasibility of what we really needed in all the town buildings and see if it was in the state bidders list, so we could just directly hire somebody to do that plan. Because we need a plan first.
Sure.
We need somebody to go out and evaluate all the buildings and see what the real needs assessment basically. And Tim was gonna do that, and then Tim left. So that was started from the technology committee that worked under him.
And we just needs are totally different than the town.
Yeah.
There's no question.
And that was the other thing that you brought up. You and Christine had that list of all the buildings.
Yeah.
And then, but nobody knew exactly who, who takes care of that building? Well, whoever takes care of that and whoever takes care of the bog. Like, we do have all these assets. We need to, I'm assuming if they're all owned by the town, my assumption is the town should be taking care of them and we should know who takes care of them.
Yeah. Well, that was what Christine and I tried to sort out, who is responsible for which building.
Also, and here's a case in point, the brick building.
The brick building, yeah.
belongs to the school. Redcom is now using it. The agreement between Redcom and the school is that Redcom will do maintenance. Well, Redcom doesn't have maintenance staff, but we have a town facilities manager, so we're helping them do maintenance on that building.
Well, what I'm
We're
hearing,
working on clarifying.
right? Yeah, what I'm hearing from this is that we need to, this is a project or your goal of that we should, your goal is that we need to figure out how we're going to do a better job of coordinating and centralizing. Well, no, what I'm hearing is, I think your goal is what we need to adopt as a town. And I'm also thinking about the master plan where there's some pieces in there about, I've forgotten the specifics, but there's stuff in there about, comprehensive maintenance and facilities, planning, et cetera. That I guess, one of the questions would be, do we want to have the Municipal Facilities Committee play a key role in working with whoever the other key players are to move in this direction?
Barney, I
yeah,
think
go
it
ahead,
is
Travis.
right, it is exactly what our charge is, because
Yeah.
we set our goals for the year, and this is squarely with what we're trying to do. I mean, it crosses so many of the things, fiscal responsibility and sustainability, and this is a way that we can potentially save money for the town, become more efficient. We talked about a comprehensive capital plan review, capital capacity estimate, which isn't exactly this, but this kind of ties in with our master plan. And I think it really should be one of our priorities, because I think this is something we could accomplish and really, show that we're following the master plan in many ways. So.
And I think it's a form of regionalization because statutorily, the schools have different budget and have to take care of their building, but it doesn't mean that we can't regionalize, so to speak. that
Or shared
functions, that
yeah,
serve
Share
services.
services.
And I remember Nathan saying, well, this is, you know, a form of regionalization. We also are talking about regionalizing a number of functions, and I think that should just be one of those. So when we have you know, if we have the Collins or if we do MAPC, I don't know if they would have some capacity or bandwidth to be also looking at this sort of thing.
Structurally, you may look at whether the goal is best to go with something like the school or the DPW, and that you do have synergies if you do that, right? If you go with the DPW, well, then, you know, when you have a big storm, instead of replacing doorknobs, that person's out there plowing, and you know, or whatever. And with the school already does buildings, and they do buildings well, so you just may look at where your synergies are best, and to set up an actual structure where, as you say, people know who they're reporting to and what their job is.
And maybe what the priorities of those jobs are.
Well, that's why you're gonna have pushback. So you can say, he's in charge of all maintenance, and he'll figure it out for you, and he'll execute the plan to the committee. Great. What's gonna happen though is you're gonna have 10 requests that equal $200,000 and $150,000 of capacity. Then Steve's gonna have to prioritize, and that's where you're gonna get pushback from your departments and your committees. I would rather have a decentralized control because I have local control of my budget and I can fix something now. I don't have to wait 6 months when the plan makes sense. So really, it's a chicken and egg. You have to identify the structure you want and then deal with the fiscal changes that are made there. But almost all these decisions are about, when you say centralized or decentralized, it's local control.
Well, but this is more than that, because before we had Steve, people were, because everybody, the local controllers, were getting outside vendors and contractors to do some small jobs. And those guys were charging huge, you know, charges just to drive out here, to look at the thing and be, you know, not even fix it sometimes. We at one point had Steve keep a kind of a running thing. I think it was over $100,000 that he saved in contracted work because he was able to do it. So I think it's, you know, it would save us money to have more staff to be able to do some of this maintenance than to have it decentralized. And I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a hybrid thing. I don't know. But the thing is, we need help to study the situation, figure out what people are willing to do. As Carrie said, get people into the room, the stakeholders into the room, and have them hash it out. And let's move it. Let's do it.
I think this is really
Order us to do that. We
worthwhile.
will.
Yeah, I think
We're here to serve you.
Yeah. Well, let's.
I move that Ryan make everything right.
Yeah.
Is there any-
That's right. We just tell Ryan, you do this. Yeah.
When they come to you and they don't like it, then you
Yeah.
have to say no.
Right. I'm conscious of the time, and I know Chief Fisher is here too. So there were you were starting with the bigger goals. I know there's some short-term goals, but should we, maybe Travis, you want to advise on which short-term goals or look at the charter? Because I think we need to end in 5 minutes if we can.
What do you recommend, Jerry?
Well, the charter. There are several things in the charter that it says when authorized, the MFC, when authorized by the Board of Selectmen or town meeting for investigating advice in town regarding design, construction, reconstruction, maintenance alterations. I'm not sure what maintenance, I mean, we don't come to town meeting and the select board when we're doing maintenance on buildings.
Right.
And then the process, all service contracts less than 50,000, while the board will execute all contracts over 50,000 on favorable recommendation. Well, that isn't really what we do. I mean, all of our contracts go through the town administrator. And we have done contracts over $50,000. We didn't bring that to the board. Should we have?
I will.
I think the answer is yeah. I mean, initially when this, this was all new, right? When we were embarking on the initial charter. And so, we wanted, I think in your first point around the maintenance and things, I think that when we put this together, we wanted to know kind of like what the plan was going to be. And we wanted, just to see that about a plan for better maintenance, because we didn't have any before. And then we did want to be involved in the expenditures. I think that by and large, I think we, for a lot of it, I think, Kim as the purchasing agent just did it. But I think what's in there was put there on purpose. But it's because it was all in its infancy at the time.
Well,
So my suggestion on the charter, so let's just think about it kind of short term.
well, and
Is,
there-
oh, okay,
one other,
point in there.
well, the committee is 5 members. We have always had a representative from the school committee, but that isn't in the charter.
Right.
Do we want the charter to mandate that 5 members, at least one of whom
Right.
is from the school committee?
I think. it would
Well,
be
if
helpful to-
we do
Yeah.
take as a goal, and I'm put air quotes, regionalization of maintenance of both schools in town, I think we definitely have to have a representative from the select board and a representative from the school committee to keep that moving forward.
Sure. Why don't this process, and I know we're trying to keep on target here, but why, maybe the MFC should review its charter and come back with a revised edited charter that would, that we talk about as the MFC, and then present it to the select board for approval or modification.
Yeah.
As I recall, Christine Lear did a draft a couple of years ago. I'll see if I can pull that up if you want to. Not have
She'll
to
have.
reinvent the wheel again.
But I would like, I think that's a good start to obviously fix the charter, but in that, I would like to see us. I would like it because you're gonna meet, when do you next, you should meet and do it quickly and come back, because I really would. Personally, I'm just speaking for me personally, I would love to see us do something this cycle. And that something might be the low hanging fruit, like what I think maybe Brian said. Town hall, library, maybe police station. 3 areas that by your own admissions, they don't want to be doing maintenance themselves. Let's get that started. Brian seems to be pretty well self-contained with his own, you have a person who does things and you have some budget money, and obviously the schools. Like, I'd like to see us get started, right? I agree with Kate, but I think I don't want to get so tangled up in, intersecting committees that we can't get that piece done. So that would be my personal preference. The other comment I want to make is, I thought we just agreed that IT committee was going to figure out the phone system. Is that true? Okay.
Yeah. So we
So you don't have to worry about the phones, Jerry.
during this meeting, at the beginning of it, we approved the formalization of an IT committee, and different membership and some continuing members, and one of their charges is the phone. Yeah. All right, so we've concluded that you'll take a crack at just giving us some suggested revisions.
We will discuss it at our next meeting.
Yeah, and you don't feel like you have to wordsmith the entire thing. If you want to give us the basic concepts of what you think should be changed, an individual could do the wordsmithing part of it rather than trying to do that as a group. And then let's entertain the idea, Ryan, of when we're in this budget process to see whether we might be able to take a step toward having the police and the library and the town's maintenance budgets be put into one.
Carefully, because obviously their maintenance, the police maintenance budget is not just the building, it's also their
No, you gotta look at all the things.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, take the opportunity to,
Study, yeah.
yeah, to see if
Yeah.
we can move in that direction.
It would define vehicles as part of the physical plan.
I understand. That's what
Right.
I'm saying. You can't just take the maintenance
No, you've gotta
budget of the police
segregate.
department, that line item, and
Right.
stick it in some other department because
Right.
it's kind of, not the same. It's apples and oranges.
And then I guess the longer term, I think we as a select board need to think about how we can look at the larger issue we've raised about, moving in the direction of having a more coherent, coordinated approach to maintaining our buildings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But also what staff,
Right, and the staff resources.
staff resources.
Well, I mean, one immediate thing. We meet every other week and we vote on spending a lot of money. We have a hard time keeping accurate minutes of our meetings because, well, Carrie is the recording secretary and has been busy with Carlisle Castle stuff. And other people have had to fill in taking minutes. If we could have the use of some town personnel for 2 hours in the morning to attend meetings and take minutes, that would be wonderful.
And I'm still worried about the custodial services in town because,
Well, that's, I think, part of the larger.
the custodian
I say that,
hired and it's never been replaced.
right, so, well, I mean, what we were talking about, if we take town hall, police and library, and you just look at that as a starter for this year, all those things, including staffing, that would be the package that you would propose, and then to minutes as a part of, it's sort of a tail wag the dog thing, but to your earlier point, if you then have an approved budget for those maintenance, it shouldn't need a meeting where you have to record that you voted that, $1.98 to change a light bulb, right? It's inside the budget. The TA or designee, I guess Steve has the authority to spend to the budget and spends to the budget. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask that we end our discussion. There's lots more to do, obviously, but yes.
One more short-term suggestion
Okay.
that would help Steve tremendously is that somehow, and I know the town is very tight on this, but he needs a credit card. I mean, the difficulties for him to go when Jen isn't there or nobody else is around. He has to spend his own money to support the town and then try to get reimbursed.
Oh,
At least where I came from, we used to have our guys that had authority with a credit card, and obviously the purchases have to be reviewed by superiors and whatever. But that would help him out tremendously because it's very difficult right now for him to do stuff. I mean,
all right. We can definitely follow up with our town administrator on that.
That one's not simple.
I know. But yeah, thanks for raising that. And we really appreciate, I mean, for me personally, and I'm sure for others, this has been a very worthwhile and in some cases enlightening conversation.
Thank you for listening to us whine.
yes.
Hey, Jerry,
And we appreciate your service enormously.
would you be, could we notionally put the 15th of November to come back? I want to keep it going.
I love it.
I mean, you gotta do that because if we're gonna get
Yeah.
going, we should get going.
Well, that's only a month.
But they meet every 2 weeks, they have one session to be their charter, come back with your charter.
Oh, okay. All right.
It's just,
Yeah.
Keep it moving.
Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Thank you, David.
You're welcome.
Good.
Yeah.
Good
Okay.
momentum.
Excellent. All right. Well, thanks so much again for being here and for your service. Yeah.
at 8 in.
Yes, really. All right. Yes.
Yep.
Chief Fisher, please come join us.
No, I never.
Let me just. All right.
I'm excited for
let's,
that charter.
Yeah, let's shift gears here and welcome to Chief Fisher, who yeah, so we got a memo from, I think, did you share that memo with
It's in the
team?
revised.
These are the revised.
Yeah, so we have an initial information and background about the police chief recruitment. I don't know if, but how do you want to do this, Ryan? Because I know you and the chief have talked about this. What do you want to, how do you want to approach the?
I mean, I think I proposed this
Discussion.
to Ryan, so it's
Yeah.
my fault if it's goofed up.
No,
I
no,
don't
no.
think
It's,
you know, if it's not perfect, but I think.
There's a lot of overlap, so I'll just give you my general frame that I gave to them and then you can inform it.
Thank you.
So chief needs to start on October 19th in Bedford. That's known from his letter of resignation. I spoke with the town of Bedford and pending final approval. They said about a month would be appropriate for the chief to serve in both capacities, which would bring us out to November 19th, doing the math. Also spoke with some providers, mostly provided to me by chief providers, meaning people who can help us secure a search for a new police chief. That 120 to 180 days is attainable, but anything short of that is moving quickly and probably shouldn't be expected. Also, for interims, most chiefs prefer a 30 to 120 day interim position. So this matches our time frame. So if we extend it out to November 19th and then hired an interim for 3 to 4 months, it gives about 6 months for a search, just to put some things in context. And then 2 types of firms I reached out to on the advice of the select board. One was a municipal search firm. So those who are typically aligned with town administrators, but do a lot of recruitment. So that would be Community Paradigm, which you've used before, or UMass provides that service as well. So what they typically do is reach out and advertise the way they normally do. And then for the police advisements, they procure an assessment center, and then they would help give some of that specialized police knowledge. Or what I'm calling a police search firm. These are specialized search firms that focus just on hiring police chiefs and other public safety personnel. The difference is that experience with that field, so they have more contacts and more ability to provide an analysis if that's what the board's looking for. The municipal side is a little cheaper, a little faster. The police side is a little bit more thorough, a little bit more expensive, generally speaking. And then what I said the board needs to decide on and obviously get information from the chief about is whether you're going to go with a search firm, municipal, or one that's more police oriented. The role of and the involvement of a screening committee. So that is good because you get the input that you're used to, but it also will slow the process down when you have to work with a firm and a screening committee. And then probably more time sensitive is the interim. So what type of process do you want to use to appoint an interim? Are you going to use a search firm? That type of thing.
Okay. Chief, what would you like to
So I guess to
offer?
add on to that,
Yeah.
number one, I concur with everything he said, although I'd flip a coin on the who's quicker. The folks that do most of the police chief searches are the folks who do municipal stuff. Keeping in mind that, you know, we're going to be competing with at least 4 agencies that are right in our jurisdiction in the same time period.
That are looking for police chiefs.
I mean, it's public information. Concord Police Chief announced last week he's retiring, right? That's done. Acton is he's retiring in a month. And Georgetown and one other that I was called to consult, but I'm not positive there. It's public information yet. I believe it is, but I'll keep that under hat. But what we do know is that we're going to be competing with some folks that really kind of hit right through our range, right? So I think that finding a firm that can be specific is important. And I don't want to jump around, but I think starting where Ryan did with the interim piece, I feel like, you know, we have a candidate in our backyard, and I put Ken Fong in touch with Ryan. He was on my search committee. He's somebody that I called for advice regularly. You know, he lives in town. He knows our members. He's a retired superintendent from the Boston Police Department, who has some extensive knowledge. He's, you know, he's the acting chief in Bedford right now, and that's not by accident. But I connected these 2 last week, and I would really strongly suggest you consider him because he can do it, and could do it without a lot of fanfare, and you wouldn't have to pay an intermediary. So you hire a search company that goes out and hire an intermediate chief, if you're paying the chief $75 an hour, search firm is grabbing their piece of that because they went out and vetted that person and they're putting their stamp of approval on him. So I don't want to get too far in the weeds. I would hope that that would be really, really obvious to you folks that, he's the right person. And I basically had to beg him to do it because he's likes retirement. And even though he's younger than I am, he's willing to do it to help out his hometown. So anyway, that's one piece. And then, I'd love to hear your opinion on that piece. The second thing is, I think in searching for a firm, I initially put RFP down, which is the wrong language. I would just grab 3 bids because you're talking about that 10 to 50 range. It's probably going to cost north of $10,000, south of 50. I think we should grab 3 bids from the folks that normally do this stuff. And I think that we're going to, using that methodology, we're going to get some good candidates. The chief searches that have been, keep in mind, this is public information, right? So, of the NEMLEC chiefs, which are 63 of us, 2/3 of them have less than 2 years on. That's what the turnover has been like recently. And that saps from a candidate pool, for good, bad, or indifferent. That's also Commonwealth wide. Over 200 out of the 350 chiefs have retired in the last 3 years. It's a crazy time, but I think the folks that do this best are the police chief search firms. Not taking any shots on the municipal side, but they tend to be academics, not people in the weeds. It's somebody who's thinking. So like a deputy chief from another place would, with these search firms, a little more comfortable picking up the phone and calling a retired chief and saying, is this legit? Is this a good place? Are things going wrong in that town? Yeah, those kind of conversations, which don't necessarily happen if you bring somebody in like somebody from Amherst and they travel all the way over here. All right. So anyway, let me jump to my letter. So I talked about the acting chief hiring the consulting firm. I put down, the big 3 that have done almost all the searches in this area. I think they'll be the most reasonable. And, 2 of the firms are, through Ryan's calls, definitely aware of what we're doing and have already called me. So just to kind of learn, they want to know, is there something going on? Like, is it something crazy? No, it's not that. So anyway, but I think getting a firm that does police chief searches regularly, I think getting them in so that they can interview you and interview the citizen group. I think getting that citizen group together is going to be really important, and getting in front of you folks is going to be really important. That happens early on, right after they've been identified. So, most of these folks, the police search firms, are used to getting a bid back in 2 weeks. So, if we'll say you empower Ryan and I to bang that out, we could probably return with, hey, this is how we're asking for bids. And then the bids could be reviewed by the select board, and you could hear about the firms. They could come in and make their pitches like they normally do. But they're used to, especially the local folks, the folks in Eastern Massachusetts are used to turning the stuff around because their folks are right here. Because they are going to want to talk to people. They're going to want to interview members of the department. They're going to want to talk to you. They're going to want to make sure that the package that they're putting forward is good. And then they all use the common spots to look for folks. Most folks looking for police chief jobs, they're on an MMA website. They're on the Massachusetts Police Chief's website. They're not going to PERF. They're not going to any of the federal, the big websites if you're looking to police chief in the Commonwealth. And that's where you see most of the ads, either Indeed or those sites. And if this Genesis works like I think it would in my head, you'd have cover letters and resumes by the end of December, trying to stay away from the holidays, and would give the firm the time to review this stuff, which is normal. And then, the normal way is they get it down to 6 or 8 with a resume and and letter review, and if not, then they get it after they get a writing sample. So it's normal. My questions here for Carlisle was 12, I think it was 12 questions. I still have them. For example, my Bedford one was 14. So you have a 4.5, 5-page writing sample so that, if any place along the way, you folks want some proofs, like, well, how's it going? Like, they would normally deal with one person, say, well, these are writing samples and they're not. So now we're down to, 4 or 5 or however it goes. And then normal screening is after the writing sample is the firm will provide a couple of interviewers to interview candidates with a standard set of questions, ask the same set of questions. And then the assessment center, like I did here in Carlisle and like I did in Bedford, like most do. That's an 8-hour thing. It's normally 4 or 5 people, the top 4 or 5. And again, they're normally vetted by the firm. Because that's how they're evaluated too, the caliber and the quality of their candidates. And then from there, it's normal to have a community meeting like I did here in Carlisle with folks, but normally the questions are supplied by the firm just so that people stay within the boundaries of FLSA, HIPAA, things like that. Because, that's just the right way to do it, right? So then they'd be normally supplied to the folks. And from there, that's a 2 to 4 person thing. Like normally it's just a couple of candidates. Maybe it's only just one if it's somebody that you really like and that the firm's comfortable with. 2, it's not normally north of 3 or 4. Does that make sense when you get to that step? Because then you're all going to be, and everybody's going to be in the room in that environment. And you will have gotten there. And then you have, that person's going to want to provide a few weeks notice once the select board settled on a candidate. They're going to want to supply some notice because anybody worth their salt, probably has a good gig and is going to need to work on, excuse me?
Has a good
gig
already.
They're entrenched at their place, they're.
Can I ask a question, John?
Please.
You mentioned high turnover, like, I don't know, half or a whole bunch of the chiefs are less than 2 years. Is this a generational shift that's happening, like with airline pilots or stuff? Or is it just high turnover all the time in that job?
I mean, I've heard different things assigned to it, but I mean, the Commonwealth, but our country in general is in a precarious spot with law enforcement. So some people didn't want to deal with all the requirements that you have to do with post, like the stuff that, my job is significantly more labor intense in the last 2 years than it was the first 8, 9 years here. Right. Just the stuff you have to do and sign off on as a chief is significant. Some people just did not want the responsibility, did not want to do it. But there's also the normal genesis in police and fire chiefs, high level town administrators that you tend to get people that are a certain spot. And you really have kind of a sprint. You really have a decade sprint. In the Commonwealth, you've got to be out as a police chief at 65, right? That's statutorily mandated. So you might have someone that's built like Bill Rogers, but if they're 66 years old, they can't be your police chief, So that's part of it. Part of it's just the way that the retirement system works. It's based on your highest few years. And when you get to the end and you've spent 35 or 40 years doing this, you go, geez, Louise, I could, like Tim Goddard did, right? It's pretty public information.
But I mean, I'm just saying, if there was a bell curve of age, it wouldn't be so many all at once. You indicated that there's just been a lot of retirements there's been a lot of turnover in the last couple of years. I'm just wondering if it's
never been this bad in the Commonwealth. It is never. That comes up to the chiefs meetings. So the executive director of the police chiefs talks about it normally every 6 months at our meeting. It's never been like this. But the only reason I point that out is us as customers, us as the town of Carlisle trying to lure a candidate here. I can think of 4 people that if this had happened to me a year ago, I'd have said, these people will be really good. These women and men would be really good for this spot. They're already scooped up. And then there's folks out there. I'm aware of some folks out there that have called me also. I think you're going to get good candidates. but I think this is a process that we should get going with.
Yeah.
You know, it's really important to me to ensure that whoever sits in my seat next is better than me. I'm not even goofing around with that. I don't, I'm vested in getting this done properly. And I know you are too, but I know I'm kind of spelling this out in black and white, like I'm backing you into a corner or something.
No,
But it's how Bedford did it. It's
Yeah.
how Concord's going to do it. It's how Belmont just did it. It's how, it's pretty normal to do it this way, and expect these kind of timelines, expect progress out of the company that you hire.
John, did you have more in your description that you wanted to share? Or
That's all I had
That's
from
it.
the
Okay.
chief search side.
Okay.
I had a couple of department things that are kind of important to me, and I'm not sure if that's okay for me to talk about.
Well, I'm looking at the time here, and that also are we thinking we want to try to decide tonight about which approach we want to take? It sounds like we should, right? Which is the
we gotta get.
municipal search firm or a police search firm, and then
It's from both if you want to.
or, yep, and then also the interim, I think.
Right.
That question, I think we need to address. So, John, if you can let us do that conversation, and feel free to chime in if there, or we'll ask you if there's something
Sure.
we'd like your advice on, and then we'll see what the time's like after that. I'll just put it out there for myself. I'm just wondering if we're probably all I don't know if we're in agreement or not, but it sounds like the police search firm is the way to go. Would other people say that as well? Or
What's
some
the
folks
difference in
thinking we
cost?
should do both? Pardon?
What's the
Nathan?
difference in cost? There was a cost listed for the municipal, but not for the police.
Yeah, it seems to me if we're going to go out for bid or, invite people to come in, I don't see why we would limit it to one or the other. Have, if you want to do 3 police guys and 1 municipal, and, then you can compare and contrast,
Well, is there a risk there that if we think we want to do police and we put it out to municipal and police, and municipal comes back the cheapest, that we have to do that?
Yeah, how does
That's a
that
good
work?
question.
So if you are going out to bid, you have to make it available to anybody that provides this service, which would include municipal
and-
search firms. And these are my terms, municipal versus police.
Right,
They don't
right.
call it
Okay.
themselves that.
Right.
All right.
The way you write the descriptions of the service you want can dictate what you choose. So you do have to pick the lowest, most responsive bidder. So if you write the request for proposals in a way that says what you want. So we want someone with X amount of police experience or this many searches, and you can gear it that way. Or you can create a criteria of this is what we value. And then that would allow you to select the one that is the most advantageous to the community.
And you
So-
can also specify that they have to do this vetting,
The assessment center.
the assessment center, right? So,
Yeah.
I mean, because either they provide their own assessment center because they are a police thing, or they're a municipal one that
Right,
provide, and they put that into
Right.
their
Bid.
bid.
right. Which we know already, that's what Community Paradigm described they would do if they were to
Okay.
bid on this, yeah. So, I mean, I think what I'm hearing Ryan say, though, is that the way that you write the proposal influences who, bids. Right? Am I reading that correctly? So so if we said we were looking for a firm with, expertise in the area of, finding candidates to be a police chief and with the ability to do the assessment center work, that would eliminate search firms that contract out the assessment center work. Do you see what I'm saying? And I think I'm reading that correctly. Is that right?
But
Yeah.
Chief
Yeah.
Fisher is recommending the specialty
police.
firms, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So that's the decision before us now. So Nathan,
My question was simply, in the document, it says the police search form is more expensive. How much more?
Yeah.
Oh, we wouldn't know until we bid. They're not going to compete against themselves. So they gave me some ballparks.
Is three, there are enough of those kind of search firms that three is a reasonable
I
number?
mean, we're talking thousands, not tens of thousands.
Yeah.
And this is
Okay.
a
Well, it's just
significant question. This is a significant search.
Right.
And are you gonna beat yourself up over a few $1,000?
No,
And,
we agree.
you know,
I think
when you
what we
talk
don't want to
about
do is
tens
stub
of
our,
thousands, well then,
we don't want to stub our toe on a low bid that's not right for us, right? So that's right. So I think we understand. So, yeah.
what are you thinking, Travis?
Well, I think, I've watched Chief Fisher and his judgment, and I think he has great judgment. So I kind of would defer to him in how he approaches this. I think it's, we're not leaving with a chief who's, we're leaving with a first-class chief. So I defer to him. And I think that's reasonable. If he thinks in his judgment, that's a better approach for the town of Carlisle, I would agree with that.
Okay.
That sounds good to me, but we're still going for bid though. I mean, it's not.
Yeah,
Yeah,
going
okay.
to bid.
We're going for bid, but we're going to be looking more for a bid from a police, specialized police search firm. And it also makes sense because that's what we're looking for. Why
Right.
would you?
Right.
And you two, Brian, you two guys would write the RFP in that way?
we'd ask for bids, not an RFP. We wouldn't.
Yeah,
We wouldn't throw it out on the state bid site, right? You go after certain ones, or would you throw it on the state bid website?
No, we wouldn't put on.
Yeah, you're
goods and
looking for
services.
bids.
It's not required,
Yeah,
but you have to solicit at least 3 who primarily provide the service.
and there's one,
Nathan?
there's one I didn't put in here that I'm aware of that I should have put in here, so we can coordinate on that.
Nathan, are you comfortable with that?
I'm totally fine with it.
All right. So do we need a motion to that effect? Or
No,
no?
I think Ryan knows what the sense of the committee is.
Right, the sense of the board, all right. And we can probably come back to the screening committee question, right? I mean, do you have to include, you don't have to include that in your,
now.
No, we don't.
Yeah.
do that.
yeah, and
It
then,
is important because it would.
right,
inject
the
into
length of
chief's
time,
timeline.
right, right.
You'd have to coordinate.
But let's put that on for, just, I'm conscious of the time and,
Dating.
yeah, and then for the interim, so,
It's early for you. You're in the West Coast. What do you?
Yeah, but with the red eye, I got 3 hours of sleep on the plane, so.
so I know, Brian, you met with Ken Fong and, do we want to invite him to come to the select board meeting and
Yeah,
discuss this?
I don't see the
interim
point of
position?
looking any, if he were willing to do
Yeah.
this, I really don't see the point of looking any further for an interim. But I would certainly like to meet him, but
Right.
yeah.
A resident of Carlisle and highly recommended by the chief of police.
Yeah,
I mean,
you know,
And it's and just the interim in
It's just
Bedford, so, you know.
Seems.
I have one question though, John. I mean, in Brian's write-up, it sounded like he wants out of the Bedford interim by October 19th, like he's done.
So I did speak with him and I
Yeah.
won't speak for him, but
Yeah.
he said he has spent some time thinking about what his role might be in helping Carlisle select the next chief and transition the department, working with Chief Fisher. And I think he's changed, as the chief alluded to, his opinion on retiring and moving on if this opportunity became available.
Okay.
Okay.
But that's like putting a lot of words into
Yeah, okay.
a highly respected professional's mouth, so
Right.
I got that sense from him. He has sent, I asked him in anticipation of your needs, a resume and others, but I didn't want to jump the gun, so if you want to bring in more than one or just him, we can forward your materials and create
Mhm.
some type of session for you to meet.
Nathan, how do you feel about that?
I think we absolutely should talk to him.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so let's move ahead and see if we can invite him to come to the next meeting. All right, I think the other pieces here we can wait on this part. And so, I'm just going back to look at I know, John, you have a couple of other things you wanted to raise, but let me just,
Well, we can always grab it up. I mean, I can come the next meeting. It's this is
that
not stuff
okay?
like the building's gonna burn down
Okay.
if we don't
all right,
talk about it. I have a couple of thoughts I'd like to get out there.
okay,
You know,
all right.
you're stuck with me for a little while, so.
Okay, all right. So we'll, that's great then. We'll have you come back. So thank you. And we really appreciate your, just how seriously you want to work toward helping us find a good, chief. So we
Glad to
really
do it.
appreciate that. It's another sign of just what a classy person you are. Thanks. So we stopped, we were looking at the draft agenda. Let's do that quickly and then, boy, we bumped the minutes the last time, didn't we? Because we ran so late.
Well,
Yes, yes.
I get
thank
out of
you,
your hair?
John.
All right.
Yeah, yeah.
Million.
Okay, thanks,
you.
John. All right, so I'm going to look at our
What are the
draft
minutes?
agenda. Let's see, where was
Oh,
that?
draft, it's 5, number 5.
Okay.
I just look at mine.
Yeah, so we already have added a few things. We, and also we may have, we're probably gonna have the grievance hearing, right, with Officer Smith and his attorney.
But we should anticipate that, yes.
Yeah, being on this next, so
As-
that'll
as
be an
an
executive, an
Okay.
executive session, yeah. Which we might put at the end again, if people are okay with that. Okay, because then if it runs on long, which we hope it won't, but if it does, it's
Yeah.
not messing up everything
So
else.
what we still have for police, well, the police search, that might just be this,
Ken Vaughn. And,
Okay.
yeah. And we wanted to have the chief come back and add what he wanted to add. It could fall under that same thing, but.
yeah, okay.
We also said tonight we were gonna do the appointment to the IT committee. That's not a big deal.
Yeah. that
Um,
should be fast. Reno barn,
Yeah. The Greeno barn, which is,
is that an
A big
update or, oh,
well, it's, yes.
We've
it's
had
about-
people,
we've had some bids
sub-
now.
they're not bids, but they've submitted estimates of what it would cost. So it's deciding whether or not it's going to seek immediate funding source like ARPA or moving it to town meeting,
Okay,
making that conversation.
that should be, okay. That's not horrible. Okay.
Yeah. And then, we do not have another, committee on here to meet with, but we have the finance committee joint session is really all about budget.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
set our committee for the
That's an important meeting.
Yeah, so we'll make that
Yeah.
we'll leave then this.
And it
as
seems to me
is.
that you should have more than 30 minutes for that, but.
Yeah,
We'll work on that.
yeah, we'll
Are we
work on the
meeting tomorrow?
timing. Yeah,
I hope so.
yeah.
We'll-
And I do think, just following up on both the topics that were raised during community input, we should figure out, and maybe that's something you and David and I can do tomorrow, looking at the dog incident, and maybe we need to schedule time with town council to see if there is anything we can do around the dangerous dog
Yeah,
incident.
and
What was
that
not,
particular breed as well.
Yeah.
I just.
It would seem to me
Los
like we should,
Angeles.
pardon?
it would seem to me like we should consider putting at least a placeholder for another dangerous dog hearing.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
I think we have to.
I mean, because we'd want to do
Or
it.
something,
very-
yeah.
We'd want to do
We
it
have to
very
get some
quickly.
advice from town council. We've already gotten some that, but rather than put it out here publicly, we'll wait till we have something official from them. But yeah, we should probably allow time on the agenda. And then, longer term, I do think we talked about this way back, I think last spring, about just reviewing our process for appointments to boards and committees. And I think we should take another crack at that. Maybe not
Yes.
this next meeting, but I think, David, we need to put that on as an agenda
What are we
item.
putting on?
the
Process.
sort of process for appointing people to committees. Yeah. And the communication and the, decisions about how people get appointed. All right, that's it then. Unless others have something that they want to, let's think we need to have on this next meeting. And we got plenty, but if there's something critical, is ARPA gonna wanna come forward with anything? Do we need
I
to
don't
put
know
some
yet.
time in there?
No,
Okay.
that was supposed to be
Okay.
tonight.
When was the MFC gonna come back?
November.
November 15th.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Good. So, do we try to get through the minutes?
Yeah,
People have, it would be good if we
yes,
could.
because it's
It's
3
been-
meetings for 30 days,
Okay.
whichever is longer. And some of those are 3 meetings.
Yeah, all right, so let's go look at the minutes. Yeah, let's see, let me go back up here.
Okay. I moved to
Let's
approve the
start-
select board meeting minutes from August 9th and 29th. And September 13th
Right, there are 3
as
of them.
presented.
Yeah.
Second.
Thank you. All right, so they've been moved and seconded. Does anybody have any sort of substantive corrections rather than,
I had
something being
sent
misspelled
my
or?
Stuff the last time, and I
Okay.
think I didn't, I skimmed them
Mhm.
this time, but I didn't see anything that
Stood out.
stood out.
All right. Anybody else have anything on the minutes? Or we can do this quickly then.
Yep.
Okay, excellent. All right, so no, any other discussion from anyone? All right, let's go ahead then and take a roll call vote. Arnold, I.
Brown eye.
Modell, I.
Reed, I.
Snell, I.
Excellent. All right, so those minutes have been approved.
Okay.
And I think we did everything we intended to do tonight. We didn't have any other liaison reports. Is there anything absolutely critical somebody wants to mention tonight as a liaison? Okay, excellent. Well, then I would take a motion to adjourn, please.
I move we adjourn tonight's meeting.
Second.
I know there's lots of discussion about that. All those in favor?
Aye.
Roll call vote, aye.
Oh.
Arnold, aye.
Brown eye.
Modell, I.
Reed, I.
Snell, I.
Excellent. The meeting's adjourned at
Good night, all.
10:08. Thank you, Nathan. Good night.
Good.